Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. This is the Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a Wednesday edition. I think it's Wednesday. Get thrown off with the holidays of the Mark Reardon Show. Everyone's trying to get a little comfortable in here. I don't know if you noticed this, Sue. I think you have, but we have some different chair options in the room. Have you noticed that?
I got the email. Oh.
Yeah, I don't really read the emails. Let's see what it says here. We've added a couple of new chairs to the studio to get us through until the official upgrade.
Well, I'm switching right now.
I didn't even know there was an official upgrade. It says, hopefully before the end of the year, feel free to use whichever chairs you prefer, but please keep the existing chairs in the studio so everyone has options based on their preference.
Oh, it's lighter.
Okay, so I have not sat, I'm very particular about the chair.
Yes, I
sit
do.
in, right? It's the one that has like the flat handles. And if we're being honest with the audience who really does not care about this, all the chairs in the studio are they're kind of a disaster, right?
Well, they are. Mine was holding on by 4 threads, but I thought, I want to be the one who falls through.
All right, let's see. I'm going to
try that one. It looks like it's got flat arms.
It is really
Hi,
light.
Fred.
It's very aerodynamically light, right?
Yeah,
Let's
it's
see
really
here.
weird.
Okay, that's not too bad.
I see.
I think I could do, but these aren't even the upgrade ones, right?
No, these
Okay,
are pre-upgrade.
Here's what I would say.
Uh-huh.
In the chair power rankings for the room, my chair is still the best. I'm going back to that, okay?
Really?
But yeah, I'm just more comfortable. It's just a little softer in the seat. But then the second power ranked chair would be the new one.
Yeah, it's really good.
I hate all the other ones. I have
Thank
for a long
goodness.
time.
I thought this was going to be the main focus of the entire opening monologue. Sounds like it isn't.
Well, I don't know about that. It's early, Fred. I just started it. I could keep going on about the chairs if you want me to, but I do have some other stuff that I want to get to here this afternoon. I got to start with this just because it's comical. And I guess that when she says something like this, people on MSNBC will believe it because we're coming now. No matter what you think of Trump, we have a lot of people who listen who hate Trump, and I hear from them sometimes. They still listen. I have people who listen who are Democrats. They're not fans of Trump. They may not have Trump derangement syndrome, whatever the case may be. But one of the things that we do here is we call balls and strikes, or I call balls and strikes. And I'm not afraid to call a strike on Trump if he does something that I'm not a particular fan of. And that happens. It happens every day. Let's be honest with me. It's just that the good outweighs the bad on most days. But no, I bring it up because Jen Psaki, remember Jen Psaki? She was there before KJP in the briefing room.
Yeah.
And she, of the bright red hair, went on to MSNBC. I think she wrote a book. Fred, did she write a book? She might have. I thought she
probably
did. So if you go back, and this is a theme that I have actually explored with guests over the last 3 days. You go back to last week, and you can go to any week, really. You really can. But let's just take last week in particular. Trump was on TV every day, like 3 times a day. Talking with, he had the president of South Korea there. He's up there. He's taking questions. There was one day, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday of last week, that he literally was on TV 3 times doing an event. And each one of those times he took questions.
Each one lasting about 45 minutes.
Wow.
Right. So, and he does this on a regular basis. Now he did it today. He had the president of Poland in today, and he did a news conference with the president of Poland. So I've admitted before that, I think this is healthy. I don't know. You guys probably do this too. But when I leave like on a holiday weekend or Friday at 5 or 6, I guess I have to leave at 6, right? Can't leave at 5 like everyone else.
That'd be better.
I don't sit there and watch the X, formerly Twitter, or pay attention to all the news shows and everything. And I kind of start to get caught up again Sunday night and Monday morning. So I didn't even realize that there was this thing after Friday where Trump kind of goes silent because it's a holiday weekend, right? And then there's, you might have heard this yesterday. We addressed this. There was rumors of his death, which was weird. Yeah. So
I mean, I heard that, but I thought, why would you, like, nobody would cover that? I mean, what?
Well, of course. But then Jen Psaki, and see, this is why I think she gets away with it, because what I'm about to play you is just so ridiculous. And it has nothing to do with what side of the aisle you're on, because it's just patently false. There is no truth to this whatsoever.
Look, we may never know why Donald Trump suddenly spent a week hiding entirely from the American public.
What?
But you don't actually need baseless online conspiracies to explain why he might not want to show his face in public right now. I mean, for starters, there's the polling, and boy, is it brutal. Then there's the reaction to Trump playing out in the streets out there. Or maybe it's because he started to realize that his campaign to intimidate blue state governors is not working. So maybe the biggest reason Trump has been so shy recently is that a lot of this pushback appears to be working.
What is she smoking? Because I want some of it. What are you talking about? Why he has not been shy. That's one thing you cannot accuse the president of being. Now, did he go silent a couple of days during a holiday weekend?
Yep.
Joe Biden was silent for 4 years. 4 years drooling on himself. And by the way, you were up there lying to the American people in the first couple of years of that, or at least a year and a half. That's stunning to me that's like a real clip. There are so many things that happen, Fred. And I heard that. I'm like, what in the hell is she talking about? Again, this is not, subjective at all. I don't care who you are. You go and you create a little, chart or a graph, if you will, of Trump's media appearances, and he ain't shy. That's the one thing that you can say. So that's just kind of amazing to me that's out there. Now, you know who Malcolm Gladwell is?
No.
You would know. He wrote this book called The Tipping Point. Blink, really, really smart guy. And he was, our friend John Ziegler. John is a guest on a regular basis, and he goes down this because this is his thing. And he's, done a podcast about Jerry Sandusky at Penn State and how the media got so many of those facts wrong. And I'm in John's camp because I've listened to his podcast. But Malcolm Gladwell is also in Zig's camp. And, he admitted this in his book. Now, he didn't go as far as I think Zig wanted to, but the book is called Talking to Strangers. Anyway, this comes up because I'm going to bring J.K. Rowling into the conversation as well. Malcolm Gladwell had some way, shape, or form defended biological men playing against biological women. And he's on a podcast. Fred, do you know the particulars?
I think it was in 2022. He hosted some sort of a forum about it. He said he felt pressured.
So, but now he's apologizing for it. He says he was bullied, which is exactly what happens. And this is what happens on a regular basis.
If we did a replay of that exact panel at the Sloan Conference this coming March, it runs in exactly the opposite direction. And it would be, I suspect, near unanimity in the room that trans athletes have no place in the female category.
Well, you might be surprised about near unanimity in the room on anything on this issue.
I don't think there's any question. I just think it was a strange. The reason I'm ashamed of my performance at that panel because I share your position 100%, and I was cowed. The idea of saying anything on this issue, I was I believe in retrospect, in a dishonest way. I was objective in a dishonest way.
So yeah, he was bullied. Malcolm Gladwell. I mean, he's no small thinker, if you will. And now he is sorry for that. I asked Riley Gaines when I interviewed her the one time, I said, what is it? And we talk about this, Sue, all the time. Why can't, outside of anything else in the world of trans, why can't you at least admit the fairness issue when it comes to men against women? So he addresses this.
What the trans movement is not asking for, they're not asking for, a place at the table. They're not asking for to be treated with respect and dignity. What they're asking is for no one to question the considerable physiological advantage they bring to the sport, and no one to question if they're going to win these races by 5 seconds. Suck it up. That's what they were asking.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He gets that right. Now, do you know who Chris Columbus is? Sue, you know who Chris Columbus is. He is a really good movie director and writer. He did, this was a movie I watched even a couple of years ago with my daughter. She liked it quite a bit, Adventures in Babysitting. He did Home Alone. I think he did the second one. He did Mrs. Doubtfire. He did the first two Harry Potter movies. So there's this kind of, and I don't know much about this, but there's this reboot of Harry Potter that's on HBO Max. And, all of the woke people that were part of J.K. Rowling's world when it went to the screen from the books, they're just horribly offended by the fact that she has, the position that men are different from women. So she's so good on some of this stuff, Sue. And I know
yes, she is, because she's so well spoken.
Well, so here's what she says. As another man who once worked with me declares himself saddened by my beliefs on gender and sex, I thought it might be useful to compile a list for handy reference. Which of the following, she's talking about Chris Columbus, which of the following do you imagine makes actors and directors who aren't involved with the HBO reboot of Harry Potter so miserable? And then she just starts kind of listing the issues. Is it my belief that women and girls should have their own public changing rooms and bathrooms? I mean, that is so controversial, right? Is it that women should retain female-only rape crisis centers? Is it that men don't belong in women's sports? That female prisoners shouldn't be incarcerated with violent men and male sex offenders? That women should remain a protected class in law because they have sex-specific needs and issues? Is it that language should reflect reality rather than ideological jargon, especially in a medical context? Is it that women shouldn't be harassed, persecuted, or fired for refusing to pretend humans can change sex? Is it that women should not be threatened with violence and rape when they assert their rights? That freedom of speech and belief are essential to a pluralistic democratic society? That troubled minors, this is one that is certainly a theme on this show, and it will be today with Leor Sapir, who's going to join us at 4:30. That troubled minors, especially those who are gay, autistic, and trauma experienced, should be given mental health support instead of irreversible surgeries and drug treatments on non-existent evidence of benefit. This next one is fascinating to me because I'm the only one that ever brings it up, except J.K. Rowling brought it up. And she said this: is it that gay people shouldn't be pressured to include the opposite sex in their dating pools, nor should they be smeared as genital fetishists when they don't? So here's the deal on that. And I've explained this before. You're a gay man, right? You're attracted to men. And there is a biological female that now says that she's a man. If you are not attracted to that female, you are a transphobe in the alphabet mafia world. There are regular people who are, and I've said this before, I know this to be the case because many of them are friends of mine who are gay, and older gays in particular. They hate this trans crap. They hate it. I'm so glad that J.K. Rowling included that in her list because it's a real thing. And then she says that cross-dressing heterosexual male fetishists aren't actually oppressed, but having the time of their lives piggybacking off gender identity ideology. It's a good point as well. That said ideology and the privileged, blinkered fools pushing it because they suffer zero consequences themselves have done more damage to the political left's credibility than Trump and Farage could have achieved in a century. Let me have your thoughts. So well written. Great questions. I love for someone, I told Fred this earlier, it would really be nice if somebody came out just really forceful on this issue, someone of power in Hollywood. Chris Pratt has kind of, dabbled around the edges of that, but not necessarily on the trans issue, just kind of on the Trump issue or the politics. But it's long past the time that J.K. Rowling is not the only big person in the field of entertainment to make statements like that. But I thought it was great.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
There is an accident eastbound 6440 just before 141, and they've got the 3 lanes blocked. Looks like only one lane is squeezing by. So traffic is jammed behind it. Now, it started, they've got the left lanes blocked. It occurs to me, I just sent out
It's never good to hear,
I sent out a tweet of it because MoDOT was saying the right lanes are blocked, but it's actually the one right lane that's getting by. And it's created a jam. So it is back past Clarkson. Take care in that area. That's the biggest jam we've got right now. Westbound 70, also slow out of downtown because of an accident near Kings Highway. And if you are on southbound 55, it's lined up headed for Bates, but we look fine headed into Illinois. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Sponsored by Gloria Lou with your home sold guaranteed realty 314-325-6888.
Need to sell your home and you want the most money? The name to remember is Gloria Lou. Yes, Gloria Lou with your home sold guaranteed realty at 314-325-6888 and start packing.
It's summertime and that heat can play havoc on your plants and trees in your yard. Mark Cox here from my friends at Hanson's Tree Service. Give them a call. They will send a certified arborist to your yard to set up a plant healthcare strategy. They can help you with trees that might have a bug problem or a disease. Plus, they can deliver mulch directly to your driveway in most cases. Just go online to hansonstree.com or call them at 636-379-1830.
That baby's gone!
Cardinals fans, FanDuel Sports Network is your home of the Cardinals.
That ball was mashed.
And there are more ways to watch this season.
Holy cow!
Subscribe directly to FanDuel Sports Network to stream the Cardinals without blackouts.
How about that play?
Or watch through a TV provider.
Incredible!
Including DirecTV, Spectrum, Xfinity, Fubo, and more.
He got it!
Learn more at cardinals.com/TV.
Ball game! That couldn't have worked out any better for the Cardinals.
If you're considering an annuity as part of your retirement plan, we need to talk. Hi, I'm Bob Stockdale, Senior Vice President Investments with the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel and host of On the Money Saturday mornings at 11 on 97.1 FM Talk. Annuities can be a useful tool for some retirement investors, but not all annuities are created equal. Every week, we meet clients who own complex annuities that don't suit their needs and, in some cases, actively undermine their retirement plan. Before you purchase an annuity, get a second opinion from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. Requesting a consultation is free of charge. To request a free consultation, contact us at clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call us at 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com or 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member NYSE and SIPC.
We've been here 30 years. 30 Christmases in this house, and we have the traditions that most families have.
That's Terry talking about her experience with Rhino Shield ceramic coating.
We did Rhino Shield 14 years ago, and the house still looks the same as the first day. Rhino Shield really worked with me to help me get just the right, nice, soft yellow, and it's 14 years later, and it's the same color.
The main reason Terry called Rhino Shield is because it's backed by its 25-year transferable warranty.
Just sounded wonderful that we could have the house coated with Rhino Shield and not have to worry about it again for 25 years.
Take it from Terry. Give Rhino Shield a call now for a free evaluation. 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO. Or visit 877-25rhino.com.
There have been neighbors that have come by and said, "Did you just have your house painted?" Because they wanted to know who the contractor was. And I said, "No, it's actually Rhino Shield."
877-25rhino.com.
This is St. Louis Conservative. No filters, no fluff. Mark Reardon is back on the mic.
Well, Christy Nome goes on Face the Nation. This is one of the things, I don't think people know this, but it is not uncommon. I'll use Kilmeade as an example. So when he does his show that airs on Sunday nights, that is typically it's recorded. So, because of the news cycle, sometimes Brian goes live. But the Sunday morning shows are, portions of them are recorded. So someone will come in on a Saturday afternoon, sit down with the host, and they'll do the interview. Then the interview airs the next morning like live, but they do edit. So, for example, Christy Nome goes on CBS talking about Kilmar Albrego Garcia. He's the Maryland father who's just, an angel, has never done anything wrong in his life.
And the one thing that we will continue to do is to make sure that he doesn't walk free in the United States of America.
So that's what aired, but she said a little bit more about that.
This individual was a known human smuggler, a MS-13 gang member, an individual who was a wife beater, and someone who was so perverted that he solicited nude photos from minors. And even his fellow human traffickers told him to knock it off. He was so sick in what he was doing and how he was treating small children. So he needs to never be in the United States of America. And our administration is making sure we're doing all that we can to bring him to justice.
Yeah, more examples of journalistic malpractice. Now, we talk, unfortunately, about crime here in St. Louis quite a bit because we are a crime-ridden city, in downtown in particular. The guys over in Illinois, Dick Durbin's actually talking about this thing with the National Guard as being an invasion of Chicago, when most people in Chicago would love to have some, protection. And I have some interesting audio along those lines in just a few minutes. John Merline, though, is with us. He's the publisher of Issues and Insights, a senior editor at the Heritage Foundation. Hey, John, how are you? Welcome to 97.1 FM Talk in St. Louis.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you wrote a column about the deadliest cities in the U.S. and how many of them have a Republican mayor. My guess would be 0. Some of them are in red states like ours here with Kansas City and St. Louis. being blue cities with blue mayors. We do have a red state. And by the way, in St. Louis, I don't know if you know this, Jen, but we kind of got involved in the legislature, and we actually have a police commission now that's going to oversee the St. Louis Police Department. We used to have that, and then we went to what was called local control. And guess what? Complete failure. So it didn't work. So we went back to having a police commission. But your point in your piece, and this was written by the editorial board, is, look, there's all these complaints out there by Dick Durbin and J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson. And, this crime stuff is real. And by the way, it's been happening for decades in the bluest cities.
Yeah, we've been hearing that too. And so we were interested, though, in finding out, because Gavin Newsom was saying, hey, why don't you go into these red cities and these red states? And so we'd heard that, a lot of these big cities in red states have been heavily Democratic for a long time. So we just started looking at the numbers. We went in and found out, we wanted to know when was the last time these cities had a Republican mayor.
Right.
And we were shocked by what we found. I mean, New Orleans hasn't had a Republican mayor in 153 years. Atlanta hasn't had a Republican mayor in 146 years. Milwaukee's had 3 socialist mayors, but hasn't had a Republican mayor in 117 years. And these are all cities that are in the top 20 of the most deadliest cities measured as homicide rate, homicides per 100,000 people.
Yeah,
we were dumbfounded.
You included St. Louis, so the last time, and I would have maybe guessed it was longer for St. Louis. The last time we had a Republican mayor here, I would not have been able to answer this correctly on Jeopardy, was 1949. So that's nothing compared to some of these other cities, right? They've had 100 years more of Democrat mayors.
Unbelievable. And then so Shreveport was the only one in the top 20. And this is, these lists vary which cities homicide rates measure differently, so forth. But Shreveport is one of them, and they have a Republican mayor. But what's interesting is they've had a Republican mayor 11 out of the last 152 years. So it's possible that they're finally wising up. As, for example, Dallas, the Dallas mayor is interesting because he was elected twice as a Democrat and then switched to become a Republican in 2023. And what he said is that the Democrats don't have answers to these problems, and that Republicans do, which is interesting.
Well, and I would say this, and you mentioned Milwaukee. So I've lived in Milwaukee. I lived there for just more than 9 years, and I've been in St. Louis, back here in St. Louis, since 2006. When I left Milwaukee, there was a guy by the name of Tom Barrett. He became a congressman, and I knew Tom pretty well. He was the mayor. He was a sane guy, and I bring it up because we had a guy, Francis Slade, was sane, and both those guys I would put in the camp. Now I think Tom kind of got a little bit too lefty when he went to Congress, but I might have reversed that, by the way. I think he was in Congress and then he went on to be the mayor of Milwaukee. But my point is that these are two people I would hold up as examples of people that did care about crime in their cities, and they were Democrats. Yeah. But things have shifted so much certainly in the last 10 years. Maybe you can even put 2014 with Mike Brown here in St. Louis as a tipping point with that. We know what happened after George Floyd. So now, even if you have, and like on our board of aldermen here in St. Louis, we have a handful of people who are not crazy. Right? A handful. But the president of the Board of Aldermen is a loopy lefty, anti-cop, defund the police. The mayor, our new mayor, is a progressive, not as much defund the police. I think she's learned some lessons. But, when you're talking about some of these mayors, they're not only Democrats, they are socialists to a certain extent, certainly way on the progressive side.
Well, I think what's interesting about what President Trump is doing is, and I'm not saying I'm in favor of it or not, but the practical effect, I think, is getting people to realize that it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to live in fear of our lives just because we want to live in a city. We're actually writing a follow-up piece to that one on how many Democratic mayors are in the safest cities in the country.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that one.
So, and what's interesting about that is that, yeah, a lot of these are smaller cities, but some of the most deadly cities in the country are small cities. And, you look at San Diego, 1.4 million people. It has a homicide rate that's like a third of Los Angeles. It's only 2 hours away. It's in the same state, but they have a dramatically different crime scene in San Diego. And it just so happens that San Diego has had a much more bipartisan approach, shall you say. I mean, they've had Republican and Democratic mayors over the past, few decades. I think the issue for me is accountability. It's like, why do people keep putting up with this situation? And I believe that, well, first, I think Democrats just in a lot of these cities just have a hammer lock on them, and it doesn't matter what people want.
Right.
The Democrats, the party leaders just keep getting elected by hook or by crook. But I do think that it is up to voters to say, we've had enough. We don't care what your party is. We want these problems solved. And as I say, I think what Trump is showing is that they can be if you take decisive action. In D.C., suddenly there was like no murders in D.C. Like, oh my gosh, how could that possibly happen?
Wow.
And
have law enforcement show up. Look what happens. It's a miracle. Even Mayor Bowser had to admit that for sure.
Right.
So look, it's a great issue. And unfortunately, it's a great issue for St. Louis because we have some of these problems with only a population in the city of about 350,000 people because we've dwindled so much. John, thank you so much for jumping on here with me this afternoon. I appreciate it.
Sure. My pleasure.
I wanted to play this bit of audio from Chicago. This is a guy that runs a pub, an Irish pub in the city of Chicago. And these are the stories, when Pritzker's out there and Dick Durbin's out there calling it an invasion, and Brandon Johnson has to be one of the biggest idiots in the country as mayor. Tashara was right up there with him, but of course we booted her. But listen to the issues that he has and his employees have.
Yeah, we've had a lot of gun violence. We've had guys with AK-47 shooting right outside the pub. We've had the pub robbed. My wife and myself have been shot at. Both my vehicles have gun holes in them. The bar was robbed at gunpoint with 3 armed assailants come in, robbed the customers, robbed our the bar. We've had gangbangers crash into the building. We've had the bar robbed. My staff have been assaulted. I've been assaulted. We've been mugged 3 times. It's just never ending.
How do you stay? Well, first of all, how do you stay alive? How do you stay in business? People want help.
Crime is everywhere, but I think it's just where we are in the city of Chicago, the rate is just a little bit out of control. So whatever measures might help.
I think at this point, man, trying something because nothing's working. So if this works and it helps, I mean, why not cooperate?
Those are Black people who live in Chicago who have had enough.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
On the roads, accident eastbound 6440 approaching 141. And only the right lane has been getting by. Traffic is really stacked up behind this. And now it looks like they're kind of sending, well, it's still only one lane through, but boy, is this a mess. So a lot of people exiting onto 141. And we've got a jam that goes back past Clarkson. Now, westbound 64. It looks like the usual volume, Hampton through McCausland on either side of Lindbergh, and then it looks fine out west. Now, westbound 70 was slow out of downtown. There was an issue with an accident close to Kings Highway, still some volume there, but then things open up there as well. And if you're headed into Illinois, we still look good on the bridges downtown. This report brought to you by the Diamond Shop. The Diamond Shop, making St. Louis sparkle for over 100 years. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
While you start to think spring, that might mean a move is in your future. But the question is, when is the right time to buy? Well, I go to my friend Stewie at Stewart's American Mortgage to ask that question. Stewie, how do buyers beat the competition when they're looking to buy a new home?
All right, Annie, we're going to give you 3 big bullets. Number 1, get the bagel loan. No closing costs. If you don't have to pay those closing costs, add it to the bid. You'll beat all the other offers. Number 2, tell the seller you're going to close in 10 days. 10 days, most lenders take 30 days just to get the loan approved. He's going to take your offer over everybody else's right away. Number 3, we give you the power of the pre-approval in your hands. You can access our portal anytime you want and generate your own pre-approval letter. Don't wait for the lender. You can make it happen yourself.
Well, the smart move starts by calling or texting my friend Stewie at 314-324-4440. That's 314-324-4440. He just gave you those 3 tips to smart buying to beat the competition. Google the bagel loan for more information. NMLS number 226715.
Your biggest choice in home restoration is, who do you trust with your home, your most valued asset? Few can match Banner Construction's experience and dedication to excellence. Banner is an elite preferred James Hardy contractor and Pella Window specialist. Restoration consultation is a one-time opportunity to have Banner's design team show you architectural options to make your home the neighborhood showcase. Call for a free consultation, 314-569-1050. Now hiring qualified carpenters.
Why do the national tax resolution firms need the tiny fine print at the bottom of all their TV ads? Hi, this is Lance Story with the Lance Story Law Firm. You don't hear fast talking disclaimers in our ads because the claims we make are 100% transparent. The Lance Story Law Firm primarily focuses on one thing, IRS problems, and we're regulated by the Bar Association, and we have a AAA rating with the Better Business Bureau. IRS issues are serious legal issues. The Lance Story Law Firm has helped thousands of clients navigate the best resolution plans, and we tell you up front exactly how much it'll cost. Tax resolution law is all we do. So before you send money to some out-of-town, high-pressure salesperson, give us a call at the Lance Story Law Firm, located right here in St. Louis. Call today to schedule your free consultation with me, 314-260-6120, or visit LanceDruryLaw.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Hello from Pro Outdoor, your #1 irrigation and sprinkler team. Aeration and overseeding season is here to repair summer brown spots. Make sure your sprinkler system is tuned up to water in that fresh seed. We're running fall specials on aeration, overseeding, and new residential sprinkler installs within 2 weeks. Call 636-695-7800 or visit ProOutdoor.com to see all our services. That's 636-695-7800.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
This portion of the show at 3:34 sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air.
From the gateway city to the front lines of freedom. 97.1 FM Talk. St. Louis Conservative.
Well, I have a fun topic that I will toss out to the gang after 4 o'clock, so I think you'll like this one. This has to do with someone who had a bad experience with a passenger on an airplane, and that passenger was under the age of 5. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, I bet.
And then Leor Sapir is going to be with us. I love Leor. He's been a guest before. And he wrote, this kind of ties into some of the gender stuff we were talking about, because he wrote about the broken chain of trust in pediatric gender medicine. We know that well here in St. Louis because of Jamie Reed, but like the people who lead the AMA, the American Medical Association, and some of these so-called experts, they're still on board with this nonsense. Leor is exposing it. That's coming up after Sue's News this afternoon. We love Chris Clem, former Yuma Sector Border Patrol Chief. He's going to join us in the 5 o'clock hour, as is Peder Zane, who is an editor at Real Clear Investigations, plus an audio cut of the day. Fred's already got the lineup set for the roundtable on Friday. Jane will be here, Ed Rohde on her side, and the mayor of Eureka, Sean Flower. We also have tomorrow Congressman Jason Smith, he of the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, and they're kind of remarketing the big, beautiful bill. So that's one of the things that we'll talk about with Congressman Smith tomorrow. Right now, it's Scott Faughn, the host of This Week in Missouri, a big Jefferson City insider. How are you, Mr. Faughn? Welcome back to the show.
Doing very well. It's very beautiful today here in the state capitol.
It is the start of this special session, right? And one of the stories that came out today, I want you to explain this a little bit, because the headline made me think maybe that this was heading in another direction, but I think it's just procedural. So the headline in our local paper says, Kehoe withdraws his 5 St. Louis board picks as special session years. Now, he had to pull back the names, because if he didn't do that, you correct me if I'm wrong, because of the session, they would have to deal with the appointments during this period here in the next couple of weeks. Is that what that was all about?
I think that was your local paper desperately wanting to keep local control, which has been a total failure in line and make Kehoe look bad. This is totally procedural. He'll have to pull back every nominee he's done for every board. That happens every veto session, especially with a special session. There's some ambiguity on regular veto, but usually they just pull everybody back and put them back on. They'll all be placed back on. Anyone the governor wants on will be back on when special session's over with, which looks like it's going to be pretty quick. So unfortunately for those that were very thrilled and want the continued war zone to continue in downtown St. Louis, this is only a momentary reprieve.
What do you make of what's going on? Look, you're a fan of Mike Kehoe. I'm a fan of Mike Kehoe. He pulls people
Absolutely.
back in order to do a couple of different things. Now, my least favorite topic in all of media history has to be initiative petition reform, just because I think people's eyes glaze over. That's one of the topics, though, that they're going to, have on the table. And then on the redistricting, Faughn, is it something I'm seeing that even some, I don't know if this is true, but some Democrats in the Senate, some Republicans in the Senate are saying we're not quite comfortable with this. Maybe start by explaining what they're doing here, and is it appropriate to do the redrawing of the lines when we're, not 10 years away from the next census or whatever it would be now, 5 years away?
Well, I mean, I think, appropriateness, it's like some folks might call me fat. My mom called me big boned, kind of in the eye of the beholder. Is it shoddy? Is it purely for partisan? This was not drawn by any Missourians. No Missourians had input in this. This was drawn by Washington, D.C. and sent here for not to benefit one single person in the state. It's strictly for Republican partisan advantage. Now, you can think that's bad or good, depending on probably what your partisan breakdown is. I don't think it's a very good thing. I think it's a pretty bad look. I interviewed Congressman Cleaver today, and I asked him, I was like, well, okay, this is shoddy. No one's proud. The suburban Republicans are proud. They're kind of for any off-the-wall thing. But most folks are not proud of this. However, the very real reason that I think Kehoe agreed to do this is, one, Donald Trump is hard to say no to,
Yes.
and nobody in the Republican Party does. But number two, you look across the river in Illinois. Look at that ridiculous, corrupt, partisan, gerrymandered out the wazoo map. I'm sorry, the map they're going to pass next week into law is not nearly as corrupt as that.
Well,
I
know.
watched Barack Obama.
Yeah, I
Somebody
go
who
back
actually
to that
thinks
Illinois
serious
map
guy.
too. That, and you look at that one district you're talking about, which kind of cuts through the middle of the state, Champaign. It looks like what you would normally see on a radar if there's a line of thunderstorms that are coming in, right? And so that's where I'm uncomfortable, because my gut tells me I'm uncomfortable that they're doing this again so quickly. And maybe this is not good rationale or, consistent with not being hypocritical. But when you look at Illinois, or you look at some of these other states and the way that they've been gerrymandered, you think to yourself, well, you got to take advantage of the power when you have it. But I'm still a little uncomfortable with it. Is it your sense, though, because of the numbers, and even if you have a couple of Republicans on the Senate side that are uneasy about it, that they're still going to get it done, right?
Oh, they're going to do it. It'll be done in very short order. There won't be even a lot of discussion. I mean, they'll give the Democrats 6 or 8 hours to talk about it and complain, and I get it. But here's my thing. I saw a tweet from Barack Obama, and I'm so sick of the democracy stuff. It just no one cares. I mean, when you've lost, you've lost. But Barack Obama said this was a threat to democracy, and I'm like, your home state is the most corrupt. The retirement plan for governors is prison. I mean, they drew the most corrupt map ever. And I don't remember Barack Obama saying that's a threat to democracy. So I'm sorry. This whole democracy thing, I'm tired of it. And I don't think any regular person buys it. This is not good democracy, but it's not a threat to democracy. And if it was, what is Illinois? But a full-throated attack on democracy. But I didn't hear any of the liberals whining about that.
If we're being honest, most people, and even, a fair amount of people who are listening right now, this is kind of in the weeds for them. They, maybe they're a little confused when they go to vote the next time because there's another member of Congress that might be on the ballot. I'm always struggling to find out how much, most people, let's face it, most people don't know who their state reps are, their senators. They're not really dialed into that.
So in a rural area, but certainly not in the cities.
Right.
The lines are too dragging. I'll give you a prediction, Mark. I think the courts will uphold this map. And I also think not one Republican will face any pushback from the voters over doing this. Is this shoddy and bad? Is Cleaver really a good man? If you want the truth, yes. Is this probably beneath Mike Kehoe? Probably. But no voter is going to care. They're just not going to care.
Yeah, I don't think they will either. Yeah, I think you're right about that. On the initiative petition reform, which they've been trying for years, I just want them to get something done so we don't have to hear about it anymore.
Well, I'm sorry to say that even if they pass something next week, this has to go to a vote of the people. This is one the maps. They're just going to change the maps. That's going to be the new map. And they'll bring in Hatfield, and Chuck is a great lawyer, and he very well may overturn it. I doubt it, but maybe he does in the federal courts. But this whole thing with initiative petition reform, this is not the end. This isn't even the end of the beginning. It has to go to a vote of the public. And I'm sorry, I'm very pessimistic that the people of this state are going to vote to make it harder for them to change the Constitution. I think we need it. I think it's a terrible system we have. I just think the public is going to keep the one they got because it gives them more power.
Well, one of the reasons, though, I would maybe take it in a different direction. I think it's just a confusing issue, and people don't really understand it. I've talked about it for several years now, and I'm not saying I don't understand it. I'm saying I don't really, want to hear about it anymore. I do think that, and I've been, I've said this on the record before, dude. I've had issues with this stupid process since the mid 1980s, and I've been critical of it. But the way to change it, is complicated because you do have to send it to a vote. I don't know which I favor. I do think that the threshold should be more than just a simple majority. I don't know if that means 60%. Other states have gone to 60%. But I also wonder if people, when it does land on the ballot, will they even know really what they're voting for?
Well, I will tell you this. This is where being a simple hillbilly comes in handy. I would rather be the person who has the easiest time explaining my argument, who can say it in the fewest words.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a while to explain the argument to change the system. The argument to keep the system is the voters have more power.
Pretty
You're
simple.
taking their power away.
Right.
I'd like to be on the side of the simple.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it, and maybe that's where this ends up. You are often very vocal online about the St. Louis Cardinals. While I have you here,
depressing. Good Lord. I didn't know there was an eighth circle of hell, but we found it.
And Fred and I talk about it all the time because I love baseball. I depend on it from my entertainment. I can't do it anymore. I've reached that point in the season where, I've lost hope. And I just, this whole thing with the Cardinals, Faughn, it's not, we knew this a year ago. It was going to be several years, but now it seems like we've kicked the can. It's going to be, when's the next time we compete? The next presidential race? Is that the next time we have a team that can compete?
I'm going to tell you, it seemed dark in 95. I actually got so disgusted. I took Gussie to the game Monday. What a depressing sight that was. But I remember I went on the way home. I rewatched the press conference when Walt Jocketty brought Tony La Russa in, and everything changed immediately. And maybe I don't think we'll be in the World Series next year, but we go get our next Whitey Herzog, our next Tony La Russa with the Heim Bloom. And look, whether we like him or not, I'm here to give him a chance because he's all we got. So we have a new system running things. Look, this is tired. This is a failure. This is beyond a failure.
Well, but
fire everybody.
There doesn't seem to be but there doesn't seem to be an indication they're going to fire Marmol. And a lot of people
then
like him.
Will suck again.
Okay, well,
no, I'd say who likes him. Media people like him because he returns their text messages and does their shows. There's no fans that like him. Trust me. I'm
indifferent.
Monday.
Yeah.
No one likes him.
Yeah.
It's been half a decade. Look, son, you had to tell him, say, look, son, I'm sorry. You had half a decade, and maybe it's not your fault, but you didn't do anything to make it better. Time to move on. This isn't the Pirates.
Okay. Well, there
At
you
least
go.
It used to not be the Pirates.
It
pretty much is now.
I knew I'd be able to elicit some response out of you, and there we go. Scott Faughn, awesome to have you on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, we'll see you.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Okay, good news on the roads. They have cleared that accident eastbound 6440 approaching 141. We had a pretty good jam going behind it, so it's taking a while to unwind. Southbound 270, slow pockets approaching Page down through Ladue Road. Northbound is slowing, and that's from about Doherty Ferry up through 40. Now 40 out of downtown westbound, moderate volume, Kings Highway in pockets out through 270. And then out west, a little slow at Prospect. 70 has some moderate volume out of downtown, Jennings Station Road, O'Fallon, and Highway A, but it really isn't bad. And if you're headed into Illinois, we look fine on the bridges. Southbound 55 slows at Bates. Westbound 44 slowed downtown in front of the Arch. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Enjoy your land the way you've always dreamed of. Learn more at MissouriBrushControl.com. Missouri Brush Control is helping landowners reclaim their property, manage vegetation, and clear land for better views. Enjoy your land the way you've always dreamed of. Missouri Brush Control, making acreage great again. Visit MissouriBrushControl.com.
Got an email yesterday that we are just upon our final seminar of the year with Bob Kershaw, Tammy Kershaw, and Thomas Helbig of the Retirement Advisory Group. I cannot tell you that date because it is highly confidential. Pete Hegseth's involved, is very top secret, Tulsi Gabbard. So I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is coming up here in a few weeks, and we're going to give you ample opportunity to register and get involved. In the meantime, you can go in one-on-one. If you're looking at retirement in the near future, if you're in retirement, if you're way away, it doesn't matter. Look at a different philosophy. And by the way, this can't hurt. There's no obligation. They have a different strategy than the other brokerage firms. The key is safely linking to the market. Go online to retirementkey.com. Read some of the rave reviews of the people who have worked with Thomas for a decade or more. They've been doing this for almost 40 years. The Retirement Advisor Group, they're the official financial planners of this show, and you can reach them at retirementkey.com.
Mark Cox here. Join us live Thursday, September 11th at Chickenelli's in Eureka as we support Focus Marines Foundation. They're helping post 9/11 veterans transition to civilian life. Learn more at 971talk.com/events.
If you're thinking about replacing your windows before winter hits, which is smart, don't keep making the same mistake. Stop replacing your failing vinyl windows on your home now with more vinyl. Lakeside Renovation and Design will install Infinity from Marvin fiberglass windows. They're built to last, they're energy efficient, plus they look stunning, and they're custom built for your home. Installed by Lakeside's expert team, and they're going to offer a lifetime workmanship warranty. If you're ready to upgrade your windows once and for all, you need to visit windowsbylakeside.com. Schedule your free consultation today.
When we started Neovitin back in 2009, we wanted to create a multivitamin that we would take ourselves. That's why we use quality ingredients in our Neovitin Original Formula multivitamin. With over 20 vitamins and minerals, along with our physician-formulated proprietary blend, you can be sure you are getting the highest quality daily nutritional support. Give Neovitin Original Formula multivitamin a try for yourself. Find it at your local Schnucks, Deerbergs, and online at neovitin.com.
Eggland's Best. The only eggs with more fresh and delicious taste, plus superior nutrition. Available in so many delicious varieties. Classic, cage-free, organic, free-range, and pasture-raised. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Now back to Mark Reardon, calling out the nonsense, one segment at a time. 97.1 FM Talk.
So I think you'd agree that we've on this show talked a lot about why it's so difficult to get cell phones out of, classes. And now we have a state law in Missouri. You have in LA, in their district. I mean, Texas, I think it's the entire state. Every public and charter school student will be without their phones during the day this fall, which is a good thing. And why it took that long, I have no idea. But it also, if you've been tracking any of this in the last couple of weeks, it's working. It's actually working really, really well. And I love Jonathan Haidt is a guy that I've never had on the air, which I'm disappointed by because he wrote a book about all this stuff. I actually bought it because I thought it was important. And, my daughter is 10 years old. My kids who are in their 20s right now, I've admitted this in the past. I think they were around 12 years old when they got phones. Now, you might even say that that's too young. I was in a situation with my divorce where I wanted to communicate with the kids a little bit more. Was that a good move back then? I don't know.
Yeah.
So Jonathan wrote this book called The Anxious Generation, and he really studies the damage that iPhones and iPads and all these electronics that we let our kids, use, how it's damaging their development overall and how it affects the friend groups. And none of this is positive, by the way. But when it comes to the policy of no cell phones in schools, thankfully, that's kind of catching fire.
Republicans have children. Democrats have children. Legislators and governors, they all have children. We all saw it. We all can see what these phones are doing to our kids, in part because we see what it's doing to us. We can't pay attention when we're distracted by all the interruptions and social media and all that. So it's insane to think that we ever let kids have these devices in school. And so, yeah, I agree. Like, everybody could see it. And when my book came out, The Anxious Generation, it kind of provided a way for everyone to come together and say, oh, yeah, this is what we do. Let's just start by taking the phones out of school. And it's happening at lightning speed. It's really thrilling to watch.
I'm one of those people, and I don't know about you, Sue, but unfortunately, I have the phone with me at all times. I can't help looking at it at all times. And I wish I could be that person that doesn't. I will say this, though. When I was, over the summer out on the mental health leave of absence, I had to put it away. So I went for long because my brain wasn't functioning in a way where I could absorb the content effectively, if you will. So where usually if I'm watching a streaming a show or something like that, if I'm on the couch, I'd have my phone right next to me. I had hours long stretches where I just didn't even look at the phone. And that was actually somewhat refreshing. I wish I can go back to it. But when it comes to kids, here's Jonathan.
You have to push back against what's called the phone-based childhood. You and I had a play-based childhood. We all had play-based childhoods until very recently. And now our kids, we give them phones and iPads when they're toddlers. And once you give it to them, it's always going to be more interesting than everything else. So what I've proposed is 4 norms for pushing back the phone-based childhood. And it's first, no smartphone before high school. Do not give your child a smartphone as their first phone. Do not give one before high school. Give a landline. Landlines are coming back. Give a basic phone.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
That's interesting.
Give your kid a landline and tell them to deal with that and see how they react, right?
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
The second is no social media until 16, because this is the worst thing that they do on the phone, especially for girls.
Agreed.
So do not let them have Instagram or Snapchat or any of those until 16. And the third turns out to be the easiest. It's phone-free schools, because the teachers hated the phones. And once they had some support from parents, boom, phones are going out and the results are spectacular. And the final norm is if we're going to take away the phones and not let our kids grow up 10 hours a day on their phones, we have to let them play with each other outside. We have to give them back the independence that kids have always had. That's what they need to become healthy adults.
We all talk about this and we all seem so old, but honestly, when we were kids, mom and dad would say, well, dad would be working for the most part. My mom worked sometimes, but when I was little, like, get the hell out of the house, go play, come back at lunchtime and at dinner time. I'm so frustrated because we, my daughter's an only child. And because of that, you want her to have friends over and to have a play group, et cetera. And there was a situation a couple of weeks ago where she was hanging out at the pool all day. And then one of her friends came back and they were complaining that they had nothing to do. I'm like, go outside and figure out something to do. Stay off your phone, stay off your iPad. But we all managed to do it quite effectively.
Bikes. Yeah,
right. When she's got her bike, and she does that sometimes. But to Jonathan Haidt's, point, we've become in this. We've done this as parents, unfortunately, because it's the easy way out to give the phone to a kid. But you have to have some guidance, I think, after that. And this whole thing, I kind of wish it would have become one of the issues in the presidential race that Trump or some of the other candidates would talk about, because it doesn't seem like politicians talk about that issue.
Yeah.
It gets boiled down to local districts, et cetera. But Jonathan's book is very important. It's called The Anxious Generation. You should buy a copy.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
On the roads this afternoon, it's not too bad yet, but there are some slowdowns. Westbound 44 in front of the Arch, southbound 55 at Bates, westbound 70 slowing at Jennings Station Road past Lindbergh, and a slow pocket or two out toward the 70-64 split. Southbound 270, slow pockets Page down through 64, and northbound is slow from Doherty Ferry through 64. Now, 64 westbound, most of the volume there is Kings Highway out through McCausland, and then some moderate volume at 270 and at the 70 split. This report is brought to you by Barron Mirror Glass and Door. They have the largest, most beautiful showroom in all of St. Louis, full of the latest, most custom designs, located in Chesterfield Valley. There you'll see why they say creativity unlimited, quality unsurpassed. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's traffic on 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Hey, if you're up on Underdog Fantasy and you've already downloaded the app, you might have noticed they have some new graphics, and the way that they put the players up there is pretty cool. And we're getting ready for football season here, and Underdog is the best place to play and win money all season long. And with the Chiefs coming up here in just a couple of days, this would be the easiest way to explain it, because all you have to do after you download the app, I'm going to guide you into some extra bonus cash here in a moment, is you just pick higher or lower on a player's stat lines and play the Champions game. You can play with as little as $1, even with defensive players like Nick Bolton, former Mizzou standout. You can say, will he have more than 6.5 tackles and assists? Will he go higher or lower? On Mahomey, same thing. Will he have more or less, fewer than 1.5 touchdowns? In other words, will he have 1 or will he have 2 or more? And you can adjust that as well to increase the odds. So it's a lot of fun. You can play around with it. Download that app, sign up with the promo code MarkR. That will get you $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. Again, the promo code is Mark, M-A-R-K-R. Millions of fans have won billions playing on Underdog. Will you be next? Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody, Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have leaf filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/radio to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
That's leaffilter.com/radio for your free gutter inspection today. See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
Surprise!
Surprise!
You know, surprise parties, they can be fun, right? Well, financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired. Like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you think you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Marvin Mitchell at Compass Retirement Solutions and schedule a retirement double check. Marvin and his team have been helping families plan for retirement for more than 15 years. Call 314-373-1598 to schedule your retirement double check with Marvin Mitchell at Compass Retirement Solutions. That's 314-373-1598. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Give Marvin and the team a call, 314-373-1598. Firm offers insurance services, investments, and services offered through Compass Retirement Group, a registered investment advisory in Missouri and in Illinois.
An incident on a plane. We're going to talk about that. I have a story to share after the top of the hour. We got a Sue's News, not a Tuesday News, a Wednesday edition of Sue's News coming up.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-500-5000.
That's 314-500-5000.
All on the free Odyssey app.
A big ruling for Harvard. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. A federal judge just siding with the Ivy League school in a fight over research grants cut by the Trump administration. The judge ordering the reversal of more than $2 billion in cuts, ruling that they amounted to illegal retaliation for Harvard University rejecting White House demands to change its policies. The administration targeting several schools over their handling of pro-Palestinian protests and anti-Semitism on campus. 3 other Ivy League schools recently announced deals with the administration, and Harvard is still working on one. An expanded crime crackdown still in the works.
Following a surge of federal law enforcement and a National Guard deployment in D.C., President Trump has suggested federal intervention in Chicago over the objection of the governor of Illinois.
So we're making a determination now. Do we go to Chicago or do we go to a place like New Orleans, where we have a great governor, Jeff Landry, who wants us to come in?
President says his administration could straighten out crime in New Orleans in 2 weeks.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House, the president criticizing Democrat mayors and governors for resisting. The House kills a motion to punish a congresswoman over a confrontation at an ICE facility.
Several Republicans joined House Democrats in a motion to table a censure resolution against Congresswoman LaMonica McIver. The resolution would have also removed the New Jersey Democrat from the Homeland Security Committee. The Congresswoman is facing charges from the Department of Justice after entering an ICE facility in New Jersey. The DOJ alleges she assaulted a law enforcement officer while she claims she was the one who was assaulted and says the charges are political. Republican Don Bacon tells Fox News Radio he feels it's best to let the Ethics Committee finish its report on the incident.
Fox's Ryan Schmelz on Capitol Hill. America is listening to Fox News.
It all comes down to this, folks. Yep, the entire season is on the line. But my throat has officially thrown in the towel. Sounds like you need Vicks VapoCool drops. They're max strength and vaporize sore throat pain. Whoa! These VapoCool drops hit fast.
Speaking of fast, did you just see that play?
Yeah, he vaporized that ball.
That fun should have come with a penalty.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed.
There's nothing like when you get that part from eBay and it just fits. Yeah, the first time. So you can do less of this and get right back to more of this. At eBay, you'll find all the parts you need, guaranteed to fit, at prices you'll love. Sounds good, doesn't it? eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation, weather.
Our temperatures will be in the 70s this evening and eventually drop down to 56. There's a cold front coming through. There will be some scattered showers, a couple of thunderstorms, nothing strong, nothing severe, and not everybody will see any rain at all, but at least there's a little bit of rain around with the front. Thursday, some morning clouds, otherwise partly to mostly sunny skies, clearing skies. Thursday, 75. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
This hour of the Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. This is the Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Man, is this weather nice or what?
Oh,
Nice,
it's so
cooler
great.
temps. A little cloudy today, but that's okay. But I love the way that we are segueing into fall. I haven't really looked at next week, though. Are we going to get? Well, let's do that. Let's take a peek here into next week, because there's nothing quite like temperatures, low temperatures in the 50s. And oh my gosh, Sunday's low. Sunday into Monday, 47 degrees.
Oh,
it does appear as if we get into the 9th, high of 81, 85 next Wednesday, 88 next. Yeah, it's going to start to get.
Then it gets back up. Yeah, that's what we get.
But here's
That's
the deal,
okay.
though. You know, like on Thursday of next week, and this changes constantly. Who knows? It'll be snowing by next week. But it says a high of 81 or a high of 88 and a low of 61. That low of 61 is so significant because it cools off as soon as the sun goes down. And I looked yesterday. You know, I'm a dew point geek. And I was looking at it yesterday, and we got dew points right now that are in. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to give you a real, actual time dew point situation. We're in the 50s with the dew point. That is very comfortable.
Do you have your AC on or off at home?
A little bit of both, Fred.
Yeah, a little bit of both is my answer too. Right now, I left it on today, but I jacked up the temp just because what happens is if we have it off during the day, I don't think it would do this because it's cloudy, but the house would warm up to about 78, 79. And then it's harder to cool it down. But if my wife doesn't, crack the windows by the time I get home, I will certainly after that. We leave them typically open overnight.
You think I'd know this stuff by now?
Why? What?
Just like, where do you set the thermostat if you don't want it to come on? Way up high?
Yeah.
So like at 89 or something.
Oh,
Well,
not that
I don't know
high.
if you have
Not
to go
that
that
high.
high, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
so
80.
if you
80.
leave, if you
Okay.
don't want it to get too hot in the house, then and the windows are closed or whatever, pop it up to 78 or 80 or something like that, and then it won't kick in until it's that temperature. But
yeah, that's about right. I mean, when I get up and it's 4:50 in the morning, then I open the screen door, in the back, and sometimes you get a breeze, sometimes you don't this time of year, but it feels good.
But the key is the
Yeah.
low dew points. I'm just telling you, because again, the temperature, if the temperature outside is 80 degrees and the dew point's in the 50s, that's a very comfortable 80
Yeah,
degrees. You get into the 70s with the dew points, then that's not a very comfortable.
You don't want the dew point to be close to the temperature.
There you go,
That's when
Sue.
it's bad.
I think the
simplify
key in
it.
all of it is a ceiling fan.
Yeah, I agree with
If you have
Fred.
a ceiling fan going,
yeah,
you're in good
I
shape.
totally agree with that.
So I don't know if you guys have had instances where you've had incidents on airplanes, but I've had a few. And this soundbite that I'm about to play, this went viral a little bit in the last couple of days, reminded me of, and I think it maybe was my first international flight ever, which would have been
Ooh.
the early 1990s. I went to Europe with my ex-wife and my brother. My late brother actually passed away in 1996. So this was a Gen Xer that was talking about a mom and a child and an incident that happened and reminded me of something that happened to me. But here's what went viral.
I sat next to and had the worst experience with a child on a flight that I have ever experienced in my life. We will call him Spencer. Spencer and his mother were sat next to me. Spencer proceeded to endlessly kick the seat in front of him. She did not correct him once. She didn't correct him. Then he started opening the tray, banging it down and throwing it back up. And he was doing this endlessly. And yet again, she was not correcting his behavior.
Thought it was interesting that you picked the name Spencer. That was kind of
that seemed
random.
interesting.
So again, first international flight ever. I'm coming back from Europe. We had gone to Europe, Italy, and France, and a big European tour with my brother and my ex-wife at the time. And I'm sitting I'll never do this again anyway, but I was sitting like in the middle rows of the international flight, and that's so uncomfortable for me. I can't do that.
Yeah, I guess you do have a choice.
Well, I think you
Sorta.
kind of do. I don't know. All I know is I can't be there because I feel too claustrophobic. But what was happening is there was kicking directly in the back of my seat.
No.
And there were a couple of kids with a mom and dad. There were 2 kids. And this went on for a while. We're in the air. It's going on for a little bit. At first, it's kind of like the talkers at a movie. You kind of glance back and you see if
you do the
their
mild
attention.
things.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think in my mind, now this was 30 years ago, that I'm giving it an ample amount of time to see if it settles down. And I finally turn around and I say, hey, can you get her? I think I said her, but you'll understand why that's important. To stop kicking my seat. And the parents' reaction was very negative from the start because I was early in on misgendering people. Because what happened is that the first response was, it's not a her, it's a him, or it was vice versa. I don't know what it was. The kid had longer hair, looked like a girl to me. That's probably why I misgendered. So I don't think I was super angry the first time I said it, but I said, hey, you think you can, but it didn't go well from the beginning because I misgendered the child, right? They didn't like that. So I turn around and it keeps happening. And I'm like, we're not doing this. We're not going to do this flight, which is 10 hours. And I got this little kid behind me that's kicking the back of the chair and the parents aren't doing a damn thing about it.
What did they say when you said?
All right. So then I engaged. Of course, there's further engagement. And
even back then.
Yeah, but oh my God,
sure it was worse.
Fred, it was worse back then.
Yeah.
Are you? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm not a
ex-wife.
father. Okay, whatever. So I'm not a father. I'm not a parent at this time. And I remember, the mom or dad says something like, "Well, you have no idea what it's like to be, a parent." And I said, "Well, I'd be a better one than you. I can promise you that," or something like that. And then it got hot, right? And then so it was like an international.
That's your response.
The guy. It's so funny what you remember. So my brother was to my right. I think my ex-wife was to my right. The guy next to me, he had a few. All right, so he was a little liquored up. And he's just laughing his ass off at this. He's laughing at the whole thing because it was just ridiculous. So it got to the point where I was moved from the seats. I got better seats. And they said, well, the flight attendants were trying to come up with a solution. This, by the way, this is well before cell phones. Thank God, because this would have all been captured. And they, there were 2 options. Either they move or I move. And I said, I'll move because there was no way in hell. So there's 2 aspects of that. Look, I get it. I have a little girl, and I've actually been on many flights with Alexa before where I've actually told her, even if you're kind of yanking at the seat in front of you, which, adults do that too. Like, hey, babe, don't do that, or don't kick the seat, be respectful. But for that's relatable to me because it's one thing that the kid is doing it, but that a parent can't be aware and lacks the self-awareness that is going to be something that, first of all, should not be accepted. And I get that kids are kids.
Sure.
And, I wouldn't have turned around if the kid was crying. I would have been more frustrated with that. And I wouldn't have said, can you keep your damn kid quiet? Because that would have been ridiculous.
Right.
But I didn't
this
think
is
it
a
was
thing they could deal with.
It was a reasonable request.
Absolutely.
So that was like my first international incident when I was flying 30 years ago.
Well, I wonder if Brad Young has a card that says, please don't let your kid kick the back of my chair.
Yeah, well, you got to explain that reference. That's awesome because Brad, when he was filling in for me, he said he has that type of card that he hands out at
at the Munis,
like at concerts and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just says, please be quiet.
Yeah.
Please stop talking.
Yeah, that's it. Please stop talking.
Yeah, so the one that I would have would say STFU, and that probably wouldn't play very well, would it? We got Sue's News on a Wednesday coming up.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
On the roads this afternoon, let's take a look. If you are just leaving the office, Southbound 55 is a little bit slow, of course, at Bates in the construction zone. 44 westbound slowing in front of the Arch grounds. 70 westbound slows at Jennings Station Road. Then it looks okay. I mean, you may encounter some moderate volume to the west, but not much. 64 is slowing, and it's Kings Highway in pockets out through 270. Now, 270, most of the volume there is Page down through Ladue Road, but northbound has a little in there as well. And eastbound, there's some volume between Clarkson and Big Bend. And now that's in pockets and not a solid jam. If you're headed into Illinois, there's a little bit of volume westbound on the Poplar Street Bridge, but it's wide open eastbound. So no problems if you're headed that direction. This report is brought to you by The Diamond Shop. The Diamond Shop, making St. Louis sparkle for over 100 years. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic on 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
She's back with Sue's News in just a couple of minutes here on 97.1 FM Talk. If you are looking for, or maybe I should position it this way, if you do not take a well-rounded formula of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants like a multivitamin, well, you should, because it's good for your health, it's good for your immune system. I have one that I can recommend to you, and you can easily obtain them at stores, or the better way to do it and save some money by going to neovitan.com and subscribing, because that saves you 10% with the monthly subscription, free shipping. You can cancel or pause at any time. Let's say that you spend half the year in Arizona or Florida or something like that. You can pause it during that, or you can ship them to your other residents as well. They have a lot of options for you as well, depending on your age. You can have the regular formula, men's 50 plus, women's 50 plus. A few years ago, they introduced the Neovitan Omega-3 fish oil tablets as well, and those have been very, very popular. So again, you can buy them in stores. They have a store locator up online. You just put your zip code in, and they'll guide you right in. But if you'd like to save money, and who doesn't want to do that, go online, make a bulk order, or subscribe at neovitan.com. That's neovitan.com.
Rhino Shield is far superior to even the best traditional exterior house paint. Rhino Shield is 8 to 10 times thicker than paint and comes with a 25-year transferable warranty. Rhino Shield is the only ceramic coating company that has been chosen by Disney, This Old House, and 3 times on HGTV's Curb Appeal, where every episode is concentrated on unpainted brick, bonds and seals to stucco, wood, hardy, block, color lock, masonite, and more. No better product for those steel aluminum-sided homes that have become, chalky and tired looking. We coat sloped and flat roofs to extend their lives too. After 15 years, we've got a great reputation and a superior product. As long as it's affordable, why wouldn't you do it? Before you make the costly mistake of painting with traditional paint, you'd be best served to call Rhino Shield today. We are the experts and our evaluations are free. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Tell them, ladies.
Don't paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
We, without hesitation, recommend that anybody work with ThrottleNet. The experience will be as good as it's been for us, for anybody, because you'll get a true partnership and you'll be able to rest easy that you're going to get the service that you need, while they're also doing all those things that you don't want to have to think about, that you don't want to have to worry about. They're always doing that in the background for you.
Don't wait for your next IT crisis. If your business depends on technology, you need a partner that's got your back. Contact ThrottleNet.com to get a free IT evaluation and see how we can support your IT everything.
Annie Fry here. If you're nearing retirement or already retired, call my friends Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw with the Retirement Advisory Group. They'll show you how linking to the market is much safer than owning the market for your retirement savings. They are the official financial advisors of my show. Go to retirementkey.com.
If you're trying to sell a home, there's only one agent in town that I trust, Mark and Neil Gelman of eXp Realty. My friends Mark and Neil have the best system to connect you to the best qualified buyers, getting your home sold fast and for top dollar. 314-336-1991. Go to thegelmanteam.com.
Every week on the Moth Podcast, we share stories that are funny, strange, heartbreaking, and above all, true.
I myself have been married for 56 years. Unfortunately, to 4 different women.
It turns out the people I was looking for all my life is what you people would call nerds.
Follow and listen to The Moth on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Back to Mark Reardon, because someone's got to say it out loud. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Fred, I was going to ask you this question because I heard this on Fox. I haven't really seen it anywhere else. Isn't it true that they're trying to rebrand the Big Beautiful Bill?
Yeah, they've come up with a new name for it. And I think it's something like the Workers' Tax Savings Bill or something like that.
Yeah, it's the Working Families Tax Act. And I guess this is going to poll better than the One Big Beautiful Bill ahead of the midterms. So they announced that. And I bring it up because Jason Smith will be here tomorrow. Jason is one of the key people who shepherded that piece of legislation from the House side to the Senate side. Of course, he is a key member of Congress because he runs the House Ways and Means Committee. That is, if not the most powerful, one of the most powerful committees on Capitol Hill. It's the tax writing committee. So he worked very, very hard on that. I can understand why they're doing the remarketing into an election year.
Yeah.
And I've said this before too. It's amazing to me that the Democrats got off completely scot-free with their position last year of raising taxes on every American, because that's the position that they had. They just didn't want to say it, or they weren't asked the question because the media wasn't doing their job. But that was certainly something. And it's amazing to me that if they would, I would have been very curious to see what would have happened if Kamala was in the White House and you had Democrat control. Let's say they had the trifecta. Would they really have not renewed those Trump tax cuts? That's what they said.
That's what they said.
Because it's tax cuts on the wealthy, right? Even though it was tax cut for everyone. And then yesterday I went over kind of the list of the people who are not going to be taxed for tips, and that is an extensive list.
Huge.
Radio talk show host was on that list, Fred. Did you see that?
No.
No, I think we have rules. We have FCC rules against that. Let's do this here.
These allegations are deeply concerning.
Does the president have any comment?
We're not going to comment.
It's not clear messaging.
No.
And now, Sue's News. Brought to you by Sue.
I began with the story of my dog, Oscar, and the deer. Now, bulldogs, we have two bulldogs, and neither of them, Mark, you've had bulldogs. They are not what you call hunters.
No, I wouldn't say so. No.
In fact, I have a great shot of them both sitting, well, maybe it's just the big O, sitting in the backyard with a rabbit right behind him, and he has zero idea it's there and no interest if he did. So we have moved it to unincorporated St. Louis County, where we don't have a fence up yet. I kind of like the view without it. So we've been there's a stake down and two 30-foot leads.
Yeah.
And they're bulldogs. They don't,
right.
They wander around and pee on things. That's essentially it. So the other night, I thought, before I let Oscar out, he's the young one. He's about 4.5. I let him out, and I had said to Mike, well, has he seen a deer yet? And Michael said, yeah, he just sat on the back. Well, he stood on the patio and barked.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, that sounds right. Well, I let him out the other night. There are 4 deer in the yard, and he ran like a bat out of Hades after these things. And I'm like, what is happening? Phew. Chases these deer like he knows what he has no idea what to do with deer. Chases them down like through. Now we actually have some land behind us that is not people's yards. It's a cemetery. So he's chasing them down these rolling hills. There's no graves. It's just rolling hills. And I'm like, I can't. What is happening? He chases them all the way into some trees. And then he's like, oh, well, they're gone.
But visually, you could see him the whole time?
I could see him the entire time.
All right, yeah.
And so I'm screaming, like that's going to do anything.
Did he end up just coming back, or did you have to go get him?
Well, you know what? He was interested in taking care of some business down there, Ethan. So he came back and he said, well, this looks like a good spot. And I thought, I'll never find that to pick it up in the middle of that rolling hill. And then he trotted into a neighbor's yard because he wasn't allowed to see that. Came back out and just trotted home.
So the dog that we lost in May, Duke, was really, really good off the leash, unless a deer was involved.
That's exactly it.
We've had him down, like throwing the ball at the common ground. And it kind of to the point where it became kind of fun because sometimes at our common ground, there's maybe like 10 or 15 deer that'll, come down, especially this time of year. So we'll let him run and then they just scatter and he doesn't go too far. But I'm kind of curious because Max, the puppy, we have deer that come right up to our fence to eat the birdseed. And the dogs can be literally inches away from the deer the deer realize they can't come through the fence, and they're fine. They just sit there. So Max, the puppy's gotten to the point where he doesn't even bark at the deer. They just kind of coexist.
That's
well,
funny.
he didn't bark. He was just chasing.
Yeah.
He thought that was great.
That was fun.
That makes sense at your house, Mark.
Yeah.
Because all the animals get along with each other.
Right.
Well, that's true. It's Harmony Incorporated.
That's right.
And these two have no idea what deer are. I'm sure
Well, now
he's
you
like,
gotta
what
be-
is happening?
Now you got to be a little bit more careful, though,
Yeah,
right?
Yikes. On this day in history, 33 years ago, in 1992, Prince became the highest paid rock star. He signed a $100 million deal with Warner Brothers Records, $10 million an album. And at the time, in 1992, that made him the highest paid rock star. And then 30 years ago, I love this story. In 1995 was when eBay was founded. Then it was founded by a guy named Pierre because his fiance couldn't find a Pez dispenser to complete her collection. And he said, that the world has one. And if he made a website like that where people could post stuff, that could happen.
Wow.
Isn't
That's
that
amazing.
cool?
It really is.
So that was 30 years ago today.
My wife got really, really good before she got very, very, very busy professionally. She got really good in that late 2000 period of flipping stuff that we had on eBay and making a fair amount of money. I probably wasn't supposed to do this ethically, but I'm just going to be honest. There are a lot of like movie trinkets and stuff that I got from the movie
you're
companies.
Not supposed to do.
Well, it didn't matter. We did it. And people in Australia pay like crazy money just for a poster or for something like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Boy, I bet she would be good at that.
If you had
I ever
unique
need
items in particular, people would pay. It's amazing what the market, and that eBay, that is a supply demand, that's basic economics right there. What are you willing to pay?
Yeah, that's fair. Happy National U.S. Bowling League Day. I really do want to go bowling. Fred, you still bowl?
No.
That would be a good group outing.
Yes,
a couple
it
years
would.
ago, we bowled like every Wednesday night or something.
Well, what happened? Oh,
I think COVID came and then we just kind of stopped.
That's a shame.
But we did our roller skating thing. We should do a group bowling deal.
Ethan, have you bowled?
Yeah, I've bowled before. Now it's been a little while, but I'm still struggling. Listen, I shouldn't be surprised at this point. We have a day for everything, but this may be one of the more specific ones that I've heard you throw out there, Sue.
Oh,
National
the US
Bowling League Day.
Yes.
It's not bowling day, by the way. It's bowling league day.
Bowling league day. Yes.
U.S.
Yes.
Bowling. I don't want to hear about your Canadian ones. Now, there was a big corporate split announcement yesterday. Kraft Heinz is becoming two separate companies again.
Saw that.
They had begun a merger in 2015 at $46 billion, the highest in the food industry back then. But recently, people have been trying to steer clear of processed and packaged foods. And it sounds like that really affected the company. Anyway, all we know is that one company will be a North American grocery business with brands like Oscar Mayer, Maxwell House, Capri Sun, Kraft Singles. Do people still buy Capri Sun?
Do people still buy Kraft Singles? I think
I
I asked
don't
that
know.
question.
The real ones, probably.
I have Capri Suns in my fridge
If
right
you have
now.
kids, you have Capri Sun. Absolutely.
Fair enough.
Yes.
And Lunchables.
Yes.
And the other one will focus globally on sauces and, quote, taste elevation with brands like Heinz Ketchup, Philadelphia Cream Cheese, and Kraft Mac and Cheese. And they hope to have that done by next year. Now, this is interesting. The world's first thermoelectric rubber band has been invented. Now, the Chinese have been the ones who came up with it, but it's a rubber band that takes heat generated by your body and turns it into electricity. Now, this would be a big deal for all wearables people have, like a smartwatch. So you don't have to charge your smartwatch as often because the band can charge it based on the movement of your body. Not too shabby. They say that thermoelectric materials have been around for a while, but they haven't been stretchable. And these are stretchable, and that's going to make the difference.
So I'm worried about what if, is there any chance the electricity, contact with water? I wonder if that would create any sort of danger or anything.
They say, nope. So far, so good.
Wow.
Because it's rubber. I don't know.
Interesting.
Fred has announced that Fred's gone next week. We were talking about driving. So instead of my next story, I want to hear this.
Did I make an announcement?
Fred,
you're about to.
You're about to. When you drive, you guys take a 10-hour trip.
Yep.
And if it's overnight, how do you manage to stay awake? And do you split it with Marie? How does it work?
It depends on the trip. Once we came back from DC to St. Louis, and that was a long ride. And you're like, I don't know, I can't even remember, 13, 14 hours.
Oh, my
She drove
gosh.
the entire thing without letting me drive because she says I abide by the laws.
Oh, well, I can see that. Yeah.
I try to keep it within 5 miles an hour.
I'm on Team
of the
Marie
speed
for any
limit.
kind of trip then.
So she didn't want to turn that power over to me.
I
Smart woman.
understand it.
But I know
understand
the
it.
other times we've gone south to like Florida or Gulf Shores, we split the drive.
Ethan just took a trip. You just drove to Minneapolis, right?
Yeah. Let's see. What time do I usually get out of here? 6:30 or
Mhm.
so. We left around 7:30, and we got there a little
2 in
before
the morning?
4 in the morning.
Oh, 4 in the morning.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Now,
One
how'd you
driver,
get
or did you split time?
I drove the first 5 hours, and then I closed my eyes and I opened it back up, and we were there.
Look at that. Seriously.
That's nice.
It sounds like you got the better end of that deal.
I
Totally.
totally did. Now, the last time we did this, we flipped it, but I napped the whole way there, so I was wide awake for the last few hours.
You can
so.
sleep in a car for that long.
Oh,
Yeah,
Man,
I guess.
And
so.
I
some
stay
people
awake.
can.
I stay awake by eating a lot of bad food.
Oh, I understand.
Now
that.
I need a mask or something to cover up the street lights. That's really important.
Sleep mask is good, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's game changer for me.
My brother, when we would go on a road trip as kids, would be asleep like halfway out down the block, and I'd be like, "What is happening?"
I would stay up all nights before before vacations. I would take melatonin once we started, and that way I could sleep for as long of the drives as possible.
Look at you.
Yeah, that's smart. Are you a car sleeper, Mark?
No.
I can't see you sleeping like
I can't-
anywhere.
I used to be able to
sleep in any time.
I used to be able to sleep on planes, and I can't do that either.
Huh, that's interesting.
That's sad.
Well, I'll do that tomorrow. And finally, in Sue's news, we have today's random fact. Pet tortoises can go in a fridge to hibernate over winter. But you do need to ensure that the temperature remains within a safe range, and you'll want to open the door a few times a week for ventilation.
That is a random fact.
That is definitely a random
I
fact.
know, I didn't know it either, Fred. It's something to think about on your next road trip.
The Reardon Zoo is not about to add a tortoise, but that's good information just in case we do, right?
I'm Chad Robinson with Your Money Now. Newsmax filed a lawsuit today accusing conservative media giant Fox News of acting as a monopoly. Attorneys for Newsmax adding in the filing that Fox has sought to protect and expand its monopoly power in the right-leaning pay TV news market by engaging in a suite of anti-competitive behaviors. Mortgage rates fell again last week, but not enough to pull overall demand out of the months-long rut. The average contract interest rate for 30-year fixed-rate mortgages fell to 6.64%, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association seasonally adjusted index. Holiday shoppers are expected to trim their spending this season, according to a survey by consulting firm PwC. Consumers say they plan to spend an average of $1,552 on holiday gifts, travel, and entertainment, which represents a 5% slide. Crude oil futures for October under $64 a barrel. That's Your Money Now.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
You know, the motto for your retirement should not be, you know what, I think we can make it. That is not good enough. What you need is a written retirement financial plan in place. This is one of the biggest things in your life that is coming up, and you have to know what's happening and have it under control. And you know, I like to understand how things work. This is why financial and tax architects make the most sense to me. They are a trusted team. that have helped people all over St. Louis retire with confidence. And that's what it's all about. You want to be able to retire with confidence. And they put on a class at local colleges called Retirement Planning 101, and they teach you some things about it. Here's how to reduce taxes. Here's how to pay for health care. But what you do is call and register for a class, go sit there for 2.5 hours, get a handle on it, and then decide if you want them to come up with that written retirement financial plan. 314-888-5101, 314-888-5101.
You all remember me mentioning my wife's thermostat being broke because of the, the change of women evidently have to go through, which is horrible. People called me asking me how did she feel about me sharing her insanity. I did notice seeing her looking through a fork at me. So, hey guys, if your wife, your girlfriend, your better half is looking through a fork at you, look it up why. You're going to be shocked. But she's still happy that she's got air conditioning. So you need help, you need pricing, somebody told you need new equipment. Remember, Bart Inman, one easy number, Missouri and Illinois, 314-293-2600. But guys, look up wives looking through forks at husband. You better change your program around. God bless.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
4:33. This portion of the show is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air.
Born in the Midwest, built on common sense. 97.1 FM Talk. St. Louis conservative.
Hey, Chris Clem coming up after the top of the hour. Love Chris, former Yuma Sector Border Patrol Chief. He had to complete a 100-day commitment to serve as special advisor to RFK Jr. at HHS, and that kind of expired a couple of months ago, and he's been back on the air with us talking about some things related to immigration, his reaction to the ICE protests and the detention centers, all of that coming up a little bit after 4 o'clock. Peder Zane from Real Clear Investigations at 5:30. I also have an audio cut of the day. We often follow the stories related to so-called gender-affirming care, especially here in St. Louis, with Jamie Reed, the whistleblower, putting us on the map as a key player in all this nonsense from the past couple of years. Here's more of it being highlighted by Leor Sapir, who's a fellow at the Manhattan Institute, wrote a piece about this that I found on Real Clear Politics. Leor, how are you? Welcome back. Hope all is well.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
This is another one of those things that makes you just kind of shake your head. I've been going on a kind of on a rampage in the last few years, certainly since COVID, on the so-called experts, because it's amazing how often the so-called experts get things wrong. And this story that you kind of paint of the American Medical Association president, of all people, not really understanding how damaging and dangerous this so-called gender-affirming care is actually quite stunning, I think. Now, a lot of this comes from some videos that were recorded, and I listened to some of it. It gets in, sometimes it's easy for someone like me, Leor, to just pull sound bites and put them on the air. In this case, they're longer conversations, so not quite as easy. So that's why I'm asking you some of these questions, and depending on your storytelling here. So kind of let my audience know what's going on with the AMA. Despite all the evidence out there to the contrary, they're sticking with some of this so-called gender-affirming care recommendations.
That's right. So the American Medical Association is the largest and most powerful doctor trade union, and I call it that for a reason. The medical associations are not neutral arbiters of scientific information. They are fundamentally trade unions devoted to the promotion of the interests of their members and themselves as organizations. That's kind of important just to put on the table.
Right.
But the AMA has supported pediatric medical transition, so-called gender-affirming care, the use of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries to help quote-unquote, kids who feel distressed about their sex bodies as they go through puberty. And at a time where, a number of countries, especially in progressive Europe, are walking back on these interventions, here in the United States, groups like the American Medical Association remain strongly in support of them. So these videos were published about a week ago by the Daily Wire. And they contain what I think is the clearest evidence that I have seen so far of what I've called the broken chain of trust in medicine. And by that, I mean that leaders of medical institutions place their trust in their colleagues who are doctors, mental health professionals who work in the area of gender medicine, who derive professional opportunities from it, financial remuneration from it. They get a lot of credit within their profession. So they are deeply invested and they have conflicts of interest around the medical treatments that they themselves provide. And unfortunately, the leaders of medical groups like the AMA simply defer to these clinicians. It's like asking a doctor who performs bloodletting, the discredited practice of bloodletting, to evaluate the evidence for bloodletting.
Yeah. It's insane. So explain who a couple of the players are here, including, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Bobby, is it Mukamala?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. I think it's Mukamala.
Okay.
But in any case, Bobby Mukamala is the new president of the American Medical Association. And he attended a hearing in the Michigan House of Representatives Health Committee where he had kind of a spar with Representative Brad Paquette, who's a Republican from Michigan, and who's interested in this issue of pediatric gender medicine. And then the two of them agreed to have a call afterwards to follow up on this particular topic. Joining them on that call was the surgeon turned whistleblower from Texas, Eitan Haim, who blew the whistle on Texas Children's Hospital's use of pediatric transition procedures, despite telling the public they weren't doing it anymore. And it was a pretty heated exchange on that call. And Mukamala, the head of the AMA, was very uncivil and unprofessional towards Eitan Haim for just raising questions about the evidence and the AMA's support for these procedures. And some of the things that Mukamala, the AMA president, said on the call were frankly quite shocking. Just to give one example, he said that the rate of suicide among people who identify as transgender is between 50 and 70%. That means that up to 7 in 10 people who identify as transgender commit suicide. I mean, even the most
that defies common sense outside of being completely inaccurate.
That's right. I mean, even the most die-hard trans activists will not say such a thing. And, all existing research shows that the rate of suicide, even though it is higher than the general population, it's still extremely low, thankfully, very, very low. Just to give you an example, in the UK, gender dysphoric youth referred to the UK's centralized gender clinic had a suicide rate of 0.03%. So that's nowhere near what Mukamala was citing.
By the way,
he used that.
I go a step further, and I don't have the number right here in front of me, but I've seen studies that have indicated that, in fact, yes, there is a higher rate of suicide amongst not the youth who are transitioning, but amongst the so-called adults who have transitioned, like the people who have become transgender. Their rate of suicide, because I would argue because of the mental illness aspect of this, is higher. It's not the kids, it's the adults that have already transitioned.
So there is one study from Sweden. It was published in 2011 that looked retrospectively, 30 years retrospectively, at national health records, and did find that the suicide rate for adults after transition were about 19 times higher than the general population. But you can't draw any causal references from that, so we can't know if the gender transition, made suicide less likely, more likely. All we can say is that it did not bring down suicide to normal levels.
Fair enough.
And I think we can hypothesize reasonably that if the treatment they were offered was to modify their body parts rather than treat them psychologically, that may have contributed to their suicidal outcomes.
So a couple of the things that are said on this, and again, this is, I always find this interesting because of what happened here with Jamie Reed, the whistleblower in Children's Hospital in WashU, and that kind of spread across, the country to a certain extent. That's why I refer to St. Louis on some of this gender stuff as ground zero. But one of the claims, and this is what happens, I have a state lawmaker friend, when some of this was being discussed in Jeff City, you'd have activist doctors, trans activist doctors, and my friend said he would defer to the so-called experts. And I'm like, well, wait a second, these are activists, these are not experts. And there's a point on this call where this Heim guy that you referred to asks Mukalama why the AMA continues to make claims about gender-affirming care that are clearly negated by these reviews from around the planet. And he doesn't even really want to entertain that question, right, Leor?
That's right. That's right. And his basic position is, look, I trust the doctors who actually practice these types of interventions. And as I point out in my piece, that goes directly contrary to well-established principles of evidence-based medicine, principles that are affirmed, by the National Academy of Medicine in the United States, by the World Health Organization. These are not some fringe ideas within the field of evidence-based medicine. They are fundamental principles. And it also makes complete sense, right? You don't, as I said earlier, you don't want to ask bloodletters to evaluate the evidence for bloodletting. And in the same way, you wouldn't ask only doctors who are financially and reputationally and personally invested in providing a certain type of treatment to evaluate whether there's good evidence for that treatment. And that's why in evidence-based medicine, you need unconflicted researchers, usually methodologists actually, not necessarily doctors, to evaluate the evidence using systematic reviews of evidence, not just kind of subjectively reading study by study, but using a transparent and reproducible methodology. And every single one of these systematic reviews that has been done on this topic has found that the quality of evidence is just very bad. And so when Mukamala said to Representative Paquette and Dr. Heim, I refer you to a gender clinician here in the state of Michigan by the name of Jesse Krikorian, it was very interesting to see what Dr. Krikorian then said on the two calls between Krikorian and Representative Paquette, because there too, Krikorian was just a steady stream of misinformation, just simply doesn't even understand how evidence-based medicine works, made one false claim after that. I'm talking about demonstrably false claims.
Right. No, exactly. So then, then you're left in this position where you kind of, I'm not saying you defend the new AMA president, but you basically say, look, this is a career thing. He doesn't want to be labeled as a transphobe. But, the overall point here is that, as you said at the beginning, this illustrates the broken chain of trust in American medicine. You wrote, medical group leaders place trust in conflicted so-called experts who deliberately or out of incompetence, that's an interesting, possibility here, mislead their colleagues. And nobody wants to look, and I'm shocked by this at this point. I could see this 3 years ago maybe, but since there has been so much attention to this and so many reviews, and we know what happened at Tavistock Clinic, et cetera, that someone who runs the American Medical Association cannot at least be curious about the real narrative of what's going on out there is really kind of stunning to me.
That's right. And again, as the leader of an institution, his interests are against looking impartially at the evidence, against looking impartially at whether the AMA's position on this issue has been driven by evidence and ethical medicine or by activist demands. So, we shouldn't hold our breath for these organization leaders to admit that they were wrong. And I do think that some kind of governmental pressure is going to be needed to get them to do that because, we've seen many examples of medical groups getting things wrong, and it often takes a long time and a lot of efforts, political, legal, financial efforts to get them to actually admit it. Because again, I come back to what I said in the very beginning. These are first and foremost trade unions. They're there to represent the interests of their members and themselves as organizations. It's not that doctors don't care about patients. Of course they do. But when there's a conflict between the interests of patients and the interests of doctors, the medical groups have a strong incentive to prefer the interests of their members.
Leor Sapir, thank you so much. Great reporting here, as usual. I really appreciate you coming on here on 97.1 FM talking St. Louis with me, Leor.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Accident eastbound 70 at St. Louis Avenue. Watch for that one in the right lane. And there was an accident reported northbound 170, a little bit shy of 270. But that one, it looks like they moved to the shoulder. Debris reported eastbound 70 at Hanley in the left lane. So a few things to watch out for. Other than that, it's volume. Eastbound 70 is lined up headed into downtown. It's slow in front of the Arch grounds. We've got volume westbound on the Poplar Street Bridge as people come in for the action tonight. We've got westbound 40 lined up Kings Highway, and that goes out through McCausland, but slow pockets eastbound as well, and that starts at Timberlake Manor. But again, just pockets. Westbound 364 is pretty slow, approaching 141 to the bridge tonight. Out west, 70 and 6440. It's not that bad. Southbound 270, though, slow pockets. And this is Page down through Ladue Road, and then it creeps on down in pockets to 44, and then one more time down to 21. And boy, is southbound 55 a slow go. And that's as you head on down toward Bates. I'm Sue Thomas. That's traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
This Friday, the Chiefs take on the Los Angeles Chargers in Sao Paulo, Brazil, as the first week of NFL football begins. Friday's Chiefs-Chargers pregame is at 6 and kickoff is at 7. All of it is right here on 97.1 Friday night.
Sponsored by Gloria Lou with your home sold guaranteed realty 314-325-6888.
Need to sell your home and you want the most money? The name to remember is Gloria Lou. Yes, Gloria Lou with your home sold guaranteed realty at 314-325-6888 and start packing.
If you are a homeowner and you're likely to stay in your home for a lot longer, you're not looking to move, but you're looking to make your home look a lot better, especially on the exterior, I want you to look at James Hardy Fiber Cement Siding and Banner Construction, because if you're looking for low maintenance, durable, and beautiful siding, you should consider James Hardy. They're the best in the industry. If you go to bannerconstruction.com, you can read all about the Hardy product. There's an introduction with a video to the Hardy siding, why it's so great, why you would want to have it on your home. And when you're going to put a product like that in your home, this is a big project. It's going to take weeks to even get started. Then the installation process, of course, is very, very tricky. You don't want to trust that with someone who does not have an advantage and expertise and decades of experience in this industry. James Hardy Fiber Cement Siding goes so perfectly with Banner because they both are leaders in their own way, and Pella Windows is something else they specialize in at Banner Construction. For your free in-home design consultation, call 314-569-1050 or visit bannerconstruction.com.
When you're approaching retirement, there are a lot of questions to answer. Do you have enough money to fund your income for life? How should you claim Social Security? And what's your plan for health care and long-term care? Hi, I'm Eric Robert, Director of Investments with the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel and host of On the Money Saturday mornings at 11 on 97.1 FM Talk. Don't leave your retirement to chance. It's crucial to understand and address relevant risks before you retire. Our team can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create an investment portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free retirement plan consultation, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call us at 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com or 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Viking, dedicated to creating travel experiences for the thinking person, with programs designed for cultural enrichment on board and on shore. Discover more at Viking.com. That's Viking.com. Viking.com.
From politics to pop culture, Reardon breaks it all down. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Hey, our friend Chris Clem, we love him. He is a former Yuma Sector Border Patrol chief and so good on immigration and the immigration issues. He's going to join us after Fox News at right around 5:04. Peder Zane, who is a reporter and editor at Real Clear Investigations, is going to be here at 5:30. We have an audio cut of the day. Let me offer an analogy here before I really wish I would have gotten into this yesterday, but somehow it got past me. And some of you may have heard about this and some of you may not have. But let's say you had a Republican governor like Ron DeSantis. I just asked Sue during the break, like, who's the best known Republican governor? It would be Ron DeSantis. Mike Kehoe wouldn't be on that list, and there'd be a lot of Republicans that people would never know. But let's say that you had a pretty well-known Republican governor like DeSantis, and Kamala was in the White House, right? Mm-hmm. And it was Labor Day weekend, and you realize that there's all these things going on social media where there are rumors that she may have died. And people think, and the people who are detractors and the people that hate her, they're kind of gleeful about this, right? Like, for example, they go on, to be an audience member on Stephen Colbert's show, and that is mentioned, and then they actually cheer for that, right? I mean, that analogy doesn't work completely because we know that Colbert would not have someone on from the other party. But let's say something like that happened. There would be such outrage if Ron DeSantis was cheering on the death of a Democrat politician, let alone the president of the United States. But Tim Walz, the clown show that he is able to get away with it. And, he's very careful here a little bit with his language, but this gets very little attention. And there's no headline that says Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, basically was gleeful in hoping and wishing for Trump's death, because that's what he was in this soundbite.
You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things. And although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
I mean, how is that misinterpreted? How can that be interpreted any other way? You have rumors of Trump's death because there's 2 days during a holiday where you don't hear from him. People are going nuts on social media, cheering it on. And the governor of Minnesota says something like that? That's unbelievably reckless. And it barely gets any attention in the legacy media. Now, it got some attention on CNN because Scott Jennings brought it up. If I could get that to, oh no! Well, what happens is, let's see if Ethan's listening. Every once in a while, what happens is and he can fix this, but he has to come in from the other room. Ethan, that goofy thing's happening where it says error, and I know that you're able to fix that just by doing something. He'll get that fixed, because I have a really good cut from Jennings. By the way, there's some other Jennings news today, because he's rumored as being a candidate for Senate in Kentucky because Mitch McConnell's not running for re-election. But when I've asked him about this, he has told me he has not ruled it out. He was asked about it actually during an event this morning, and he didn't shut the idea down. He says, I haven't made any announcement on that yet. And that's pretty much it. But that's, I actually think there's a good chance that he might, in fact, do that. But going back to Tim Walz and what Tim Walz said, essentially trying to get supporters to cheer on the possible death of the president.
And look, what I'm worried about are people making irresponsible statements and wish casting about the president's health. I watched a video yesterday of Tim Walz speaking in front of a group saying, well, we thought we were going to wake up to some great news, but it turns out he's still alive. But don't worry, one of these days we'll wake up to that news. Now, that is the governor of Minnesota, the Democratic candidate for vice president, wish casting the death of the president of the United States. I don't care how much you hate your political opponent, wishing death upon them and joking about it means you're a broken-brained SOB, and that's what he is.
I bet there's a fair amount of people listening right now that had not even heard that, right? I did not play the audio yesterday. I should have. I had so much audio, and, we're coming back from the holiday. But that is really stunning that and then, of course, I mentioned Colbert because it really did happen on Colbert last night. They make mention of that, and people are cheering on the fact, or I think the reverse happened. They booed the fact that, Trump is still alive. But you can get away with that, and you can do whatever you want when it comes to him. That's why, when people ask me why I've shifted on Trump, that's one of the reasons. In fact, there's a really good piece written by Mark Judge. Mark Judge, I don't know if you know that name, but he was brought into the limelight during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings because he was a friend of Kavanaugh's in high school, along with Squee. Remember Squee? Well, Mark Judge has been targeted by the media, and he's pretty outspoken. He's written books before, and there was something that happened with a New York Times reporter where it appeared as if a New York Times reporter was about to apologize to Mark Judge for covering the Kavanaugh hearings and covering Mark Judge the way that he did. And Mark Judge wrote about that this morning. And I'll share that in just a little bit, because his take on that and, the backstory that is really, really interesting from a journalistic malpractice perspective. But that's coming up after 5.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We've got a stall southbound 270 north of Big Bend, and the left 2 lanes are blocked. Police are on the scene. But boy, that has left us with a jam that goes back through Page. Now, westbound Page is pretty slow. 364 slowing either side of 141 tonight. 70 westbound slow pockets past the airport. 64 is lined up Kings Highway out through McCausland, slowing again at 270, but eastbound has slow pockets too. Lindbergh through Big Bend. Then westbound, we had another accident reported near Timberlake Manor, and then slow pockets through Chesterfield Valley, and again at Lake St. Louis Boulevard. Southbound 55 slowing south of Arsenal, down through Bates, and a jam on the Illinois side, both directions, Route 3 at Monsanto Avenue, especially southbound Route 3. A slow-moving train. This report is brought to you by Baron Mirror Glass and Door. And they are simply the finest when it comes to mirror glass and shower doors. You can't find better quality, prices, or service than at Baron Mirror Glass and Door. They have the basics all the way up to the elite. Baron Mirror Glass and Door can't be beat. I'm Sue Thomas. That's Traffic 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Well, I would say this goes back 8 weeks ago now. I had dinner with a guy that is known as Bitcoin Ben, and he's a St. Louis guy. I was not familiar with him. I actually met him here at the radio station just briefly in June, and we started to talk about cryptocurrency and some of the things that he did. He's a fascinating guy. He's got a lot of passion for cryptocurrency, and he started these clubs out there. He's a truck driver, actually, and he started doing stuff on YouTube that gained a lot of attention, and he thought, you know what, there's a lot of people out there, and I'm included in this list, that really they don't know a lot about cryptocurrency. Why don't we teach them? So he started clubs in Dallas, Texas, in Sarasota, Florida, in Nashville, in Las Vegas, in Massachusetts, and now he's bringing his club here on Manchester Road to St. Louis. And you can find out more about what Ben is all about and the new club and what they're going to do with Private Key Capital and some of the programs and the meet and greets that we're going to have. BitcoinBen.io. That's BitcoinBen.io, and stay tuned for more.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody, Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have Leaf Filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/radio to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
That's leaffilter.com/radio for your free gutter inspection today. See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
I hear from sellers all the time that they fear they have missed out on the selling market. They are so relieved to learn September, October, and November are strong selling months. With low inventory and hopefully lower interest rates, this fall will be a hot one for real estate. I'm Christina Straight, owner of Straight Realty. You may have heard me say, why pay more than 4 for years? Now it's why pay more than 2, saving you even more money. Call me 314-441-4444. And remember, why pay more than 2?
Straight Realty is a licensed broker in the state of Missouri, Kansas, and Nevada.
Hey, it's Bo Matthews, and Missouri Brush Control is helping landowners reclaim their property through eco-friendly forestry mulching. Missouri Brush Control can transform your overgrown acreage into accessible and usable land, and in a fraction of the time compared to conventional methods. Missouri Brush Control also cleans up around ponds, lakes, and dams, allowing easy access to your water feature. They service residential, commercial, and recreational properties with their specialized machines and years of expertise. Enjoy your land like you've always dreamed of. Visit MissouriBrushControl.com. That's MissouriBrushControl.com.
KFTK FM Florissant, an Odyssey station.
A win for an Ivy League university. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. Harvard wins in federal court in its challenge against the Trump administration's decision to strip billions of dollars in research funding.
The Trump administration's termination of more than $2 billion in federal grant money for Harvard ran afoul of federal law and the First Amendment, a federal judge ruled. Judge Allison Burroughs says the record makes it difficult to conclude anything other than the administration used anti-Semitism as a smokescreen for a targeted, ideologically motivated assault on the country's premier universities. President Trump accuses Harvard leadership of ignoring threats and harassment of Jewish and Israeli students amid campus-wide protests against the war in Gaza.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker continues to push back on President Trump's plan to send the National Guard to Chicago to help combat crime.
What we're trying to do is to get them to follow the law, and when they are not following the law, we can
take them to court, prosecute them if they're doing something truly illegal.
Yesterday, the president said he will send troops to Chicago and Baltimore, but did not lay out a timeline. Survivors of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein holding a press conference on Capitol Hill this morning, calling for the release of the files on Epstein. Jenna Lisa Jones gave her account of what happened after meeting Epstein.
I remember crying the entire way home, thinking about how I couldn't ever tell anyone about what actually happened in that house.
Yesterday, the House Oversight Committee released more documents related to the investigation, but Chair James Comer has admitted most of the information was already public. Wall Street, the Dow lost 24, the Nasdaq gained 218, the S&P added 32, breaking a two-day losing streak. Google helped lift the market after avoiding some of the worst-case scenarios in its antitrust case. America is listening to Fox News.
It all comes down to this, folks. Yep, the entire season is on the line. But my throat has officially thrown in the towel. Sounds like you need Vicks VapoCool drops. They're max strength and vaporize sore throat pain. Whoa! These VapoCool drops hit fast. Speaking of fast, did you just see that play? Yeah, he vaporized that ball. That pun should have come with a penalty.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed.
Hey, listen to this. All I needed was a new starter. Got a great deal on eBay. Did it myself.
Yeah, that's cool. But how about the soft purr of an upgraded exhaust when it fits just right?
For me, it's the little things. Like these new windshield wipers from eBay I installed. From small fixes to big upgrades, eBay has all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation, weather.
Our temperatures will be in the 70s this evening and eventually drop down to 56. There's a cold front coming through. There will be some scattered showers, a couple of thunderstorms, nothing strong, nothing severe, and not everybody will see any rain at all, but at least there's a little bit of rain around with the front. Thursday, some morning clouds, otherwise partly to mostly sunny skies, clearing skies. Thursday, 75. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
This hour of the Mark Reardon Show is sponsored by Gamma Tree Experts. Your trees deserve the best care. Call Gamma Tree Experts. This is the Mark Reardon Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
You know, I ran out of time to play this, but I want to get this in when we talk about, the Tim Walz's of the world and others cheering on the possibility that Trump was dead. You tell me if this were in the other direction, what the coverage would be like. Now, the first part here is Tim Walz, but I mentioned that this went, on the Colbert Show last night as well.
Look, I get it. You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things. And although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know. There will be news.
Donald Trump will never die. Forget it. He's like Dracula. He's going to keep sucking the life out of us forever.
The biggest story was frenzied social media rumors speculating whether Donald Trump had died. For the record, Donald Trump is very much alive, okay? And no... We like our presidents alive.
So, if Gutfeld had a studio audience, he's a great person to use as an analogy here because he eclipses the ratings of all those three bozos put together. But let's say that Kamala or, Uncle Joe were in office and they had a room full of people cheering on the potential death of the president. I'm pretty sure CNN would be running nonstop coverage about that. The New York Times would put something on the front page of their website and the printed paper. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch, an idiot like Tony Messenger would write a column, or Aisha Sultan, one of the two bozos over there. But when Tim Walz says it, or the canceled, Stephen Colbert, it's perfectly fine. No one's going to write about that in their media columns because it's cool. It's just about Trump, right?
Right.
That is unbelievable to me. It really is. And then did you this is pretty hardcore. Did you see what happened with the Venezuelan drug ship?
Oh, no. Is that the footage I've been seeing? But of course I can't hear anything in here. Yes.
You have the U.S. has deployed a bunch of Navy ships and troops near the Venezuelan waters, and then President Trump revealed, then they showed this video that they killed 11 people on a boat in the Southern Caribbean that he said was transporting, drugs from Venezuela. So here's what Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, said about it.
We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs. We're not going to allow this kind of activity. You're poisoning our people. We've got incredible assets, and they are gathering in the region. And so you want to try to traffic drugs? It's a new day. It's a different day. And so those 11 drug traffickers are no longer with us, sending a very clear signal that this is an activity the United States is not going to tolerate in our hemisphere.
I'd say it's a clear signal. There's no doubt about that. Here's the president.
What was found on that boat, and why were the men killed instead of taken in?
On the boat, you had massive amounts of drugs. We have tapes of them speaking. It was massive amounts of drugs coming into our country to kill a lot of people. And everybody fully understands that. In fact, you see it. You see the bags of drugs all over the boat. And they hit, obviously, they won't be doing it again. And I think a lot of other people won't be doing it again when they watch that tape.
Chris Clem is back with us this afternoon, former Yuma Sector Border Patrol Chief. I have to ask you first and foremost about that. That's pretty hardcore, Chris Clem. How are you on this Wednesday afternoon?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I saw that video right when it came out after the president was talking yesterday. And, look, Tren de Aragua is a designated foreign terrorist organization. Obviously you listen to some of the media saying, you didn't take them into custody. Look, the drugs that they're transporting, whether that was meth, cocaine, or fentanyl or whatever, that's a slow death. If that would have been a terrorist planning an IED, we would have applauded an Apache taking it out. Instead, this was just a slow death of an organized terrorist organization that's been designated by this country, running drugs that were destined for the United States. President, Trump, whether you love him or hate him, he does what he says he's going to do, and he's going to put an end to that. And that was a remarkable video, and shout out to our American military that took care of business.
Let me play one more soundbite here from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
The United States has long, for many, many years, established intelligence that allow us to interdict and stop drug boats. And we did that. And it doesn't work. Interdiction doesn't work because these drug cartels, what they do is they know they're going to lose, 2% of their cargo. They bake it into their economics. What will stop them is when you blow them up, when you get rid of them. The President of the United States is going to wage war on narco-terrorist organizations. This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison. And under President Trump, those days are over.
Yeah, I can promise you, though, the coverage in the New York Times and elsewhere will be on the legality of the strike. What is Trump doing? Do you have to? You can even hear it, Chris, from the question, right? Do you have to kill people when you're trying to stop them, right?
Yeah, that's why I said, look, they're a designated foreign terrorist organization, and we don't negotiate with terrorists. And so that's how the president has looked at that, and obviously acted on that. We heard Secretary Hegseth reference that, and then Secretary Rubio. I mean, think about it. Rubio's been a senator for 13, 14 years. Now he's a Secretary of State. He knows this. He's worked directly as a U.S. senator with South America, Central America, and Mexico. He knows exactly what we're up against. He's from Florida, where we've had plenty of semi-submersibles and decades of drug running coming out of the Caribbean and the Gulf. So, this is a long time coming. It's going to be uncomfortable for people that get uncomfortable when they have to see bad things happen to bad people. But it is absolutely necessary to the extent that we need to do this to protect America. I mean, we've seen the poisoning and the deaths and the destruction that narcotics, especially the narcotics that are tainted with harsh chemicals and pharmaceuticals like fentanyl, that are poisoning people every day. And so, they're sending a clear message, and it's great that they're highlighting this. I mean, we never want to see death, but we've got to deal with it. When we're dealing with these circumstances. But we've secured that border from on the southwest border for so much of the traffic that it's the other stuff that's coming in the non-traditional ways, or the the often underreported ways, like through shipping lanes and through shipping cargo and through these semi-submersible boats. So this is just the reality that now that we've cleared out the daily clutter of millions coming in under Biden, that now we can go after the targeted, really bad operations that have really didn't get our attention over the last 4 to 10 years.
Chris, one of my favorite media moments from the past 2 weeks, and I think it was roundabout 2 weeks ago today, you had a reporter in Washington, D.C. from Channel 4 there. I don't know if that's the CBS affiliate or which affiliate. She's there doing a story. I think it was a separate story, but notices that there are ICE officers that are detaining a dude who's just screaming at the top of his lungs about just being, someone who's following the rules. He's got a family. He's here legally, all these things. So this starts to go viral. People start retweeting it. There's, even folks that appear like Jessica Tarlov on Fox on the 5. They point out that it's always the cruelty. The cruelty of this is just the point. Well, then it didn't take too long to figure out that the dude that they were taking down and arresting also had detention orders that were ignored, was sent out of the country 3 times. He returned. And also, by the way, sexually molested someone under the age of 13 years old. So they were looking for another Maryland father moment, and he's been in the news the last couple of days, and they couldn't quite get there because the guy was charged with a felony involving a child under the age of 13 years old. They had to be so disappointed, Chris.
Yeah, that's the shameful part of the mainstream media and how they have portrayed illegal immigration for decades, right? It's always, this poor person they were following. I mean, it's constant. You scroll on social media and it's always, oh, this mother has been here for 20 years. She was trying to do the right thing. Oh, find out says she's been convicted twice of felonies and lied on her application. Sorry, that's not a lawful citizen. That is an illegal alien that has committed more crimes by lying, on their applications. Again, that is a federal charge for lying on an application. So, yeah, there's constantly these crying moments and, oh my gosh, the cruelty. No, the cruelty is allowing this kind of stuff to go on for so long at the expense of the American taxpayer, at the expense of the American citizens' security. That's the cruelty. It gets old real quick when you hear the Tarlows of the world looking for another Maryland man story, Maryland father story. Reality is the MS-13 smuggler. It's really ridiculous. I got to tell you, I was traveling this past weekend. I won't say exactly where I met up with some agents, but it was in my former sector. I'll just say that, in Yuma sector. And they were the happiest they had been. I spent about 30 minutes talking to them. The morale for our Border Patrol agents and our federal law enforcement, they had just come back from an operations and with ICE, and they were just it's amazing that they're getting things done the way they are, and they're super stoked. So I told them I'd give them a shout out because it was just it was good to see smiles on the agents' faces going out there and doing their job, knowing that the president this time has their back, unlike the president of the previous 4 years that was demonized them. So again, you're seeing morale at an all-time high. Lots of friends that are my age that are actually joining back up, that still have a few years left of eligibility because they got an opportunity to come back and fight. I was like, you guys go knock yourself out. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing here. But
I can't even imagine the difference in culture from last summer when you and I were talking about this and exposing all this. Bill Malusian on the border showing scenes and African nationals, Chinese nationals, men streaming across the border being completely ignored by the rest of the legacy media, and even the story of success here. They don't look for any kind of narrative that involves closing the border down and keeping millions of people from streaming over illegally. Well, they want to focus on, if you go to the LA Times, New York Times, Washington Post, is the Home Depot that may have had some ICE officers there scaring the hell out of people, and that's the purpose of ICE. That's the narrative that you continue to see. There's nothing along the lines of what we're talking about, what you're talking about. I'd love to see a reporter from the LA Times talk to some of those agents and get their perspective. Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be nice, but you and I would be we don't hold our breath for that. All those operations, and again, you just have to find the fine print or listen to people that have credibility, including myself, because I'll talk to my friends that are still out there. When they go to the Home Depots, when they go to those work site areas, they're going after a specific target or specific targets that have orders of removal, criminal aliens, and again, a lot of people are running, and we have the right. The law gives them the right to stop and question. This administration is telling agents, if you encounter somebody that has violated U.S. laws, arrest them, which is the opposite of what the last administration said. They said, if you don't find your target, you don't get to arrest other people, and that's the difference of upholding law and order. And ICE is such an incredible piece of the integrity and accountability process of our immigration system. We want to clean up legal immigration. We want to make it easier for those to come in here for the right reasons, or if Americans need this immigration for business and the economy and academia. But we cannot have that unchecked. We cannot have that in violation of our laws. And that's what ICE is for the interior. That's what the detention is for. That's the due process everybody is screaming about. It starts with an arrest and a detention. That's part of due process. And that's where we're going. And that's a good thing. We've done the basic stuff of securing the border to the extent we can in 7 or 8 months of this administration. And now we're moving through the interior enforcement and detention. I think we're going to get to a spot where we start working on the immigration solution, but it's always going to require arrest, detention, and consequences for the law violators. And I'm proud of this administration, proud to have been part of it on the front end, but even more proud to see people that I used to work with, having fun doing their job again.
Yeah, Chris Clem is here. He is a former Yuma Sector Border Patrol chief. But as you mentioned, you did 100 days as a special advisor to RFK Jr. at HHS before you kind of came back into the fold, because we missed you a little bit earlier this year. You were working on that, right?
Yeah, and that's another whole other narrative there. This had to do with finding the missing kids and getting accountability in place and putting practices and policies to make sure that what we saw, which was, basically the missing 300,000 children and people being put with unvetted sponsors going through horror. We put an end to that in that first 100 days. We put practices and policies in place to actually vet the sponsors and hold sponsors to basic legal common sense requirements like proof of address, proof of income, proof of identity. We get to know who you are. We want to know all the adults in the household, and let's make sure that you do have family ties, because the stories of the opposite of that was unbelievable, right? And so that's a great thing. I'm very proud of that.
Explain that a little bit. Meaning, what do you mean by that?
It was crazy. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of documented cases of fraud, right? Where there was missing information, wrong information, fraudulent or counterfeit Social Security numbers put in applications that were never followed up on by the last administration. So we were letting an unaccompanied child go into the custody or the sponsorship of an adult that we didn't properly vet. Come to find out, there's a couple cases on top of mine where the claimed brother was actually raping this person and impregnated her, or exposed them to MS-13 gang members and overdosing. I mean, this is the stuff that was going on because of a failure by the last administration by putting speed and process over accountability and responsibility for children. I'm glad to say that we pumped the brakes quickly on that. And that was a highlight of this administration so far.
Hey, Chris, one of the things I don't think I ever asked you, and I meant to do this last time, because I'm a little uneasy about this, but on what your perspective on the way that the ICE agents are masked during some of these incidents where they're taking people into custody. I mean, I'm a little queasy about the masking thing. Now, I understand you're trying to protect people who are getting doxxed and all that stuff, but what would you say about that?
Yeah, it's kind of a case-by-case basis. I never wore a mask, and I served warrants, and I was always in uniform. I very rarely did plain clothes operations. So I kind of look at it as, there are certain circumstances when you're going after or going into an area where you have a high-ranking cartel member, or you're going to be met with confrontation, that you've got to protect your identity and protect the identity of your family and loved ones, because everybody's got a phone, there's a camera out there, and they're doxing. So I do respect that and appreciate that. That is not something that is really uncommon. It's just that what is common is cameras are everywhere now, so you're seeing more of it. I agree that just basic vehicle stops and public encounters probably shouldn't be masked up, because that does kind of play into that narrative. But if you're serving a high risk warrant and you've got all your identification on there and you need to protect your identity, that's okay. But I think that there's a lot of images out there. It looks like it's a little over the top, but I get it, right? It's about officer safety at the end of the day. And look, for people that say they're being, the language is crazy, right? Oh, they're disappearing and kidnapping. Every agent and officer is accounted for in those operations. So if someone's got a complaint of whatever, those
you can track them down.
They can track them down. They're going to know everybody that's there. So individuals, officer safety is what's most important to me.
Chris Clem, you're awesome. Thank you so much for contributing this afternoon. I hope you're well.
Appreciate it. Always a pleasure being on. Take care.
Take care. Thanks, Chris.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Well, there is a Cardinals game tonight. The A's are in town, and we've got volume on eastbound 70 headed into downtown. Westbound 70 is slow past the airport, and then it's a little bit of volume on either side of 141. Now, 64 westbound, that lines up Kings Highway in pockets out through 270. But we've got eastbound volume there as well, and it's mainly moderate, but it's east of 270 through Big Bend. Out west, 40 is slowing at Clarkson and even a little to the west of there. Southbound 270 is lined up, and this is from Olive, heaviest down through Doherty Ferry, and then it opens up. 55 southbound is slow, mainly right there as you approach Bates. I'm Sue Thomas with traffic. That's 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
This report is sponsored by McKelvey Homes.
Hi, I'm Jim Brennan at McKelvey Homes. Have you always wished for a brand new home in an established neighborhood? Select one of our move-in ready custom homes throughout St. Louis, or we will build on your lot. Visit McKelveyhomes.com and move up to McKelvey.
I remember it might have been even right around this time last year where I got in touch with Mike Reynolds from Michael's Flooring and said, hey, we're thinking of, and because we had some damage from the bunny in my daughter's room in particular, thinking about pulling the carpet out, putting some hard flooring in there. What are your recommendations? And we did most of this just on the phone, sending pictures back and forth. He guided me into some flooring called Paramount, and we picked a color. He offered a couple of different colors. We chose a color that we thought would look great. I was out of town the weekend that they installed it. I actually removed all the carpeting from 2 rooms myself to save a little money, and I was on a trip. I think I might have been in Las Vegas the weekend that the guys came over. It was just one guy actually came over and did the flooring. And you're never quite sure. You know, I did it on the phone with pictures. Becky and I made the selection with my daughter, actually. I got back home that weekend. It looked spectacular. It looked amazing. We did it on a budget. You can do it on a budget. They can guide you into a big flooring project. You need some beautiful Mohawk carpeting that's silky soft. They have hard flooring as well. Or if you need to do something on a budget, they can make that happen. With 3 great locations open every day of the week except for Sunday in Old Town St. Peter's, in Darden Prairie, also in Creve Coeur on Olive, and the website igotfloor.com.
Don't get lulled into believing the IRS is getting soft. It's just the opposite. Hi, this is Lance Story with the Lance Story Law Firm. We are being told by IRS collection officers that their higher-ups are demanding that they get more aggressive than ever. So don't ignore them any longer. Level up. If you have unfiled returns, unpaid taxes, levies, or liens, call the Lance Story Law Firm today and let us get between you and the IRS. We'll protect your rights, including your right to appeal or even your right to take the IRS to tax court. Remember, IRS problems are legal problems, and they need to be handled by an expert attorney team who's done it for decades. So call the Lance Story Law Firm today. We're local. Our office is right here in St. Louis, or visit Lance, DRURY, law.com to schedule your free consultation with your local tax resolution law firm, the Lance Story Law Firm, 314-260-6120.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Is your home, business, or church looking tired, chalky, or in need of curb appeal? Go Rhino. Tired of painting year after year? Go Rhino. Our unique 3M ceramic technology is perfect for brick, stucco, aluminum, steel, color lock masonite, and more. It's backed by our 25-year transferable warranty to not chip, crack, or peel. Great if you're staying, and even better if you're selling. Our ceramic coating allows you to maintain all of your architectural features. The decision to do vinyl will leave your home looking like a plastic moldy box. With Rhino Shield, in 15 years, your home will still have that, wow, it looks like you just got it painted. We've done large condo complexes, parking garages, pole barns, and commercial strip malls. We coat sloped and flat roofs to extend their lives too. Evaluations are free. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. See what we did there? Genius. Tell them, ladies.
Don't pay, don't fight.
Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Reardon's back. Smarter talk for the Show Me State. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Yeah, we got a roundtable set for Friday already. It's going to come up on us quickly because of the holiday. We'll have Jane Duker on the panel, Ed Rohde on her side, and the mayor of Eureka, Sean Flower, will be here. Brian Kilmeade on Friday night. He doesn't often do Fridays, but I think we had him last Friday as well. It just became a little bit easier with his schedule. I worked with somebody, this is going to sound terribly insensitive, but I'm just going to tell it the way that I feel. Back in Milwaukee, I worked with someone in the newsroom, and Sue, I don't know if you remember this story. I'd have to even look it up to remember all the details. But you remember when Oprah Winfrey said something about cattle producers, and there was like a big trial and a big lawsuit?
Huh, no.
So she talked about mad cow disease on an episode that aired in 1996. And then the cattle industry filed suit against her in 1998. And it's interesting that you don't remember, and I don't really remember exactly what happened in the end, but I bring it up because when I was working in the WTMJ newsroom at the time in Milwaukee. And as a news person, and this is what happens with everyone who's an editor or a news anchor or a reporter, you have to kind of prioritize the stories that you think that the audience will want to hear or that you might be interested in. Obviously, in newsrooms all across America, that's usually anything that involves the big bad orange man, they go with it. But my friend John, who I worked with, who's now a state senator, John Jagler, in Wisconsin, when a story would come up and we'd say, are we going to cover this? He'd say, he gave it a label of Oprah beef. And what he meant by that is, I don't care. I don't even care about this story. Now, this is where it might get a little insensitive, because for me, and some of you might have noticed this, the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, it just, it's hard to say I don't want to care about it, because I know that there are victims of sexual assault here. So it's a little different than saying something about the cattle industry and being dragged into court. Yes. On the other hand, this is used as a tool, and it's been used as a tool for months and months. And it's not, Democrats. The Democrats are kind of sitting there saying, oh, Trump's afraid to face the reality of the Epstein files. I know that he had, I don't know if it was a friendship, but he certainly had a relationship, as did many, many people with disgusting Jeffrey Epstein, who was removed from the planet when he was killed in prison. But obviously, you have all this focus on the Epstein files, right? And people want people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was up on Capitol Hill today. They want everything released.
Every single person that enabled it. The shame falls on every single person that took money to continue it. And the shame falls on the people in power over the past several decades that protected the monster, Jeffrey Epstein, and his cabal that continued a nightmare. Those people deserve the shame. And today we are coming forward and we are going to fight like hell for these women, because we have to fight like hell for those that are enduring sexual abuse and are living in a prison of shame. Anyone that is being abused, it is not your fault. You should live with no guilt or fear or shame. All of the fault belongs to the evil people that do these things to the innocent.
So there is an interesting dynamic here with the media, because all it takes, and I don't know if I'm going to have time to get into this stuff. I have this great column from Mark Judge, who was a friend of Brett Kavanaugh when they went to high school together. And Mark Judge kind of got dragged into all these allegations about Kavanaugh when the hearings took place from Christine Blasey Ford. But, in this situation, I guess the reason I use the Oprah analogy is because I just have a hard time getting worked up about the release of the Epstein files or the connection to Trump or any of this stuff. President Trump calls it a hoax. Now, I don't think it was a hoax, because some of this stuff did happen, but I think he's specifically talking about the connection that he has to it.
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. It reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more. And nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax, because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. I understand that we were subpoenaed to give files, and I understand we've given thousands of pages of files. And I know that no matter what you do, it's going to keep going. And I think it's enough.
Yeah. So his position as president is like, look, no matter what we do, it's never, ever going to be enough for a lot of these people. The problem is he's calling it a Democrat hoax when it's really kind of Republicans right now leading the way, like Tom Massey of Kentucky. And I hate this guy. I don't like Tom Massey because he's on the fringes of everything, but he was out there today.
I think it's shameful that this has been called a hoax. Hopefully today we can clear that up. This is not a hoax. This is real. There are real survivors. There are real victims to this criminal enterprise. And the perpetrators are being protected because they're rich and powerful and political donors to the establishment here in Washington, D.C.
So they want all the names. And Marjorie Taylor Greene says, give me the names and I'll go out there and I'll read them all.
These are some of the richest, most powerful people in the world that could sue these women into poverty and homelessness. Yeah. It's a scary thing to name names, but I will tell you, I'm not afraid to name names. And so if they want to give me a list, I will walk in that Capitol on the House floor and I'll say every damn name that abused these women.
I wish at this point, I don't know if they've released everything. I don't know what else needs to be released. I wish it would get released just so we can put an end to some of this and see who the guilty perpetrators are. They had some of the victims at that news conference today as well.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Couple of issues on the roads. Accident eastbound 70 at St. Louis Avenue. They've got the right lane blocked and traffic is jammed behind it. We do have a Cardinals-A's game tonight, and traffic is headed into downtown in some areas. Now, there was a stall westbound 70 approaching Cypress, and that's near the airport. Look for heavy traffic that goes back through 170. We've got an accident reported southbound on the Inner Belt. That's south of Olive. And westbound 270 is jammed, crossing the Chain of Rocks Bridge to just past Riverview. An incident reported there. Now, westbound 40, that's a slow go, approaching Kings Highway out past McCausland. But it's also slowing again near Boone's Crossing, a reported accident there. Eastbound has some volume. It's mainly moderate, but it's east of Lindbergh through Big Bend. Southbound 270, slow pockets Olive, down through, it's heaviest down to just north of Manchester. At 55 is still slowing at Bates. This report brought to you by the Diamond Shop. The Diamond Shop, making St. Louis sparkle for over 100 years. I'm Sue Thomas, and that's Traffic, 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
We had a great conversation last week with Mark Gelman from the Gelman team about the state of St. Louis real estate. It's always good to get Mark or Neil on to talk about how things are going. And there is this notion, if you are a seller, by the way, if you are someone who's thinking about selling, one thing I would recommend, go on their website, thegelmanteam.com, right at the top of the page. There's a banner that says, how much is your home really worth? Find out for free. You fill in some information. They'll kick the price back to you. That's probably right around the price you would list it for. But what happens is this is what Mark said. A lot of sellers are a little unrealistic about the price that they might get and their unwillingness to do things to maybe adjust where that price point might be. In other words, maybe you have to stage the house. Maybe you have to take some things out that you're really fond of and they're personal to you, but they might not bring in the buyer that you want. That's why you have to listen to the professionals. And that's exactly what they are here. The Gelman team with eXp Realty in St. Louis. They've done this for a long time. I would highly recommend going back to the podcast and listening to Mark kind of break down the St. Louis market, especially if you're someone in the market, you're someone who is thinking about getting in the market. Look, there are buyers out there and there are sellers out there that are still getting offers above asking price when you do it the right way. Check out thegelmanteam.com for information today or call 314-336-1991. The Gelman team.
Your biggest choice in home restoration is, who do you trust with your home, your most valued asset? Few can match Banner Construction's experience and dedication to excellence. Banner is an elite preferred James Hardy contractor and Pella Window specialist. Restoration is a one-time opportunity to have Banner's design team show you architectural options to make your home the neighborhood showcase. Call for a free consultation, 314-569-1050. Now hiring qualified carpenters.
Hi, I'm Bob Kershaw with Retirement Advisory Group. Are you worried about market volatility? Are you concerned your money won't last you through retirement?
Hi, I'm Tammy Kershaw, and as a family-owned business, we are committed to protecting your retirement, whether you're nearing retirement or already retired. We have a lot of folks that aren't aware of all the new investment choices that are available, which give you growth and protection from losses at the same time. Are you aware of all the fees that you are currently paying? We can show you how to avoid those fees. So come in now for your free retirement review and get a second opinion on your retirement plan. And just for coming in, you'll get a copy of our latest edition book, Your Key to a Worry-Free Retirement. Let us show you how to retire with confidence.
We are proud to say we haven't lost a penny of our clients' money in 39 years, and we won't lose a penny of yours either. Let our family help your family. Call us now at 314-993-9494 or go online to retirementkey.com. That's retirementkey.com.
You've been listening to the very popular Wellness One for many years, Saturdays and Sundays on 97.1 FM Talk. We're happy to share that we've expanded the show to 4 times a week. Yes, 4 times every weekend. Saturday at 10 a.m., Saturday at 8 p.m., Sunday at 9 a.m., and Sunday at 2 p.m. It's the same great show designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you a common sense, science-based strategy for a healthy life. So join TJ and Aaron for Wellness One. Now 4 times a week on 97.1 FM Talk.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
And this portion of the show at 5:37, sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air.
Real talk, today's issues. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis conservative.
So I just got a text from my wife. We were invited to go to the Cardinals game on Friday night to sit in a suite by a client of my wife's. And my response was, slight problem. The Chiefs play Friday night. But she's saying the game will be in on the suite or on the suite.
Oh, yeah, you know it will.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
Enjoy
but man,
the food.
I'm ready for the NFL. I'm just telling you. Tonight is the last night that I don't have to worry about how I will entertain myself for a while, because there's football on tomorrow night. There's football on Friday night. There's college football on Saturday. There's NFL on Sunday. There's NFL on Sunday night. There's NFL on Monday night. I know, Sue, you're just as excited as I am. Right?
No, that is, I do kind of like
But
it.
I mean, I live for football, and I'm so glad that it's back. I'm a little surprised that we're already into the first week of September, but that's where we are. Hey, Peder Zane is back with us. He is one of the editors and reporters at Real Clear Investigations. I love him as a political pundit. Back with us on this Wednesday night. Peter, how are you?
I'm doing great. I still have my Yankees to root for, so I haven't completely switched to football mode yet.
Well, and that's part of the problem. You know, what you're illustrating here is part of the problem, because I am a huge baseball fan, and Fred and I, you know, we followed the Cardinals. The Cardinals maybe exceeded expectations earlier in the season. Unfortunately, the Yankees came to town and dismissed us pretty easily a couple weeks ago. But I'm just done with baseball, just because the Cardinals have kind of been a lost proposition for maybe the next few years. So I'm very excited about football.
That's the funny thing about baseball is it's hard to just watch games where your team isn't playing, whereas football, you can watch anybody. I'll go watch.
That's a great point. It really is, especially if the game is compelling and it's close. So that's really an excellent point. Okay, we don't know each other personally, but you've been a guest on my show for many, many years. I like your material. I read it. Is it my imagination, or is Peder Zane drifting a little further away from some of the support of the things happening in this administration?
No, I think what happened in my last piece, and actually I sort of began articulating this idea in the previous one we talked about, is one of my main beefs with liberals and the left for the last 10 years has been that they're unprincipled. And that is that they want a result, and whatever they need to do to get the result is acceptable. And my concern with Donald Trump is that, you know, with these efforts to go after John Bolton and Lisa Cook and, you know, to a lesser extent, Brennan, but that, you know, at some point, conservatives are supporting him simply because they want a result that gets people they don't like, as opposed to saying, is this good for the country?
Yeah, and I understand that. You know, a real life example of that in a different way would be this redistricting stuff, because while it's getting a lot of attention in Texas, we're doing or attempting to do the same thing here. We had a special session that was called by our governor, Mike Kehoe. There are lawmakers there right now. They're dealing with a couple of different issues, but one of them is redrawing the maps just a couple years after we did this after the census. And as someone who does try to, stand on principle and tries to be consistent, because my gauge is always, well, would I be pissed off about this if the Democrats were doing the same thing? And the answer is yes, I would be. The difficulty in that particular question is that I look at that and I say, and this is where, I even have to dig deep within my own principles. I say, okay, well, I do have a problem with it. And I did have a problem with it when the Democrats did it. But look what they've done. And they've taken advantage of their power. And we just sit here and we never do that. And that's why we have to do it. So you kind of rationalize this stuff in your head to a certain extent.
I completely agree. I think that the gerrymandering thing is an even better example of how, to some extent, the extremes of both parties have sort of completely, they're dominating the landscape. And so the choices that we're faced with are sort of extreme responding to extreme. Anybody just taking a step back says, this is totally not right that Massachusetts doesn't have a single Republican.
Right.
Or Texas is going to have, 4 Democrats. And, obviously redistricting is a lot more difficult when you get into the maps with actually creating non-gerrymandered districts, meaning that they're cohesive. Some parties, I think the Republicans in particular, have a natural advantage because of their dominance of rural and ex-urban areas. So, but we can just see it's not fair. But what happens is, we're letting extremes on both sides, and I don't know what to do about it, dominate the discussion. So this becomes our choice. And when that's your choice, then you say, well, the heck with them, because I don't want them taking advantage. I mean, and you think about this, raise one other thing, and we're very lucky here, but, what will we be doing if the Republicans said, we're going to pack the Supreme Court and we're going to get rid of the filibuster?
Yeah, because that's what the Democrats are going to do. And I've been opposed to both of those things. And, it's again where you have some conflict. Look, I would like to be very consistent on that, but you already have people out there saying, look, if the Democrats take control, if they get the trifecta in 2028, they're going to try that, right?
Yeah, no. But, so we can say, I don't want to live in a country, or I can't imagine what America would be like if we didn't have the filibuster. Okay. So I'm glad that the Republicans haven't done that. On the other hand, I have every expectation that the Democrats would, if, like you said, if they have the trifecta. So it's sort of just a checkup call of, being aware of where our rotten politics is leading us, the choices that it's presenting to good people. And all I was trying to do in that column is, let's just make sure to take a step back and go, this is messed up. I don't know how to get out of it, but
yeah,
it's messed up.
And I try to do that. I do that internally. I do it sometimes on the air, and it becomes very, very difficult to stay, consistent, because a lot of this really I would put on the media, because what happens with some of these issues is I get so angry about the, the way that the media covered certain stories. I was talking about immigration today. Think about the way that was covered up, or Biden. So you use that as sort of a default excuse to say, look, I'm pissed off about that, so I'm going to let some of this other stuff go because of the way that the legacy media didn't even touch this with Biden or Kamala.
100%. And I mean, I hate to say it because we're in the media, but they are really the driver of so much of this. They're so rotten. And the other thing is, and this is where again gets very tricky. I think you and I are pretty realistic from what I can gather from hearing you about what's going on. But the truth is that if you ask Democrats, they would tell you everything we did was righteous. Trump was a threat. We were trying to protect the republic. So, and I know they're wrong and they're full of it, but that's one of the complications in life, is that reality is sort of what we agree reality is, as opposed to it being an objective truth for most things. It's not a scientific fact, and there's always the possibility that we're convincing ourselves of something that isn't quite right.
Well, right, and that's why good journalism is important, and there's not enough of it out there. But then let me offer this as an example, because I played this soundbite earlier. I didn't air it yesterday. This to me is just stunning, because I think there's objectivity and subjectivity, and then there's just reality, as you were indicating. So here's Jen Psaki after President Trump does event after event. He's on camera. Every time I looked at the damn television last week, I see him on answering questions with people during different parts of the day. And then Jen Psaki goes on MSNBC and says this.
Look, we may never know why Donald Trump suddenly spent a week hiding entirely from the American public, but you don't actually need baseless online conspiracies to explain why he might not want to show his face in public right now. I mean, for starters, there's the polling, and boy, is it brutal.
Okay, I can let her go on with her BS, but I'm not going to, because it's all BS. But for her to sit there and act, and her audience believes this, right? And Colbert's audience, they believe these things. Trump was missing for... He went quiet for 2 days over a holiday weekend after he did nonstop. He did more questions and answers with the media last week than Joe Biden. I don't think this is a
cabinet meeting.
Yeah, exactly. He's had 7 of those, and Joe Biden had how many his whole administration? But that doesn't matter, because again, orange man bad. So that's why I get all worked over this stuff, because she can go on and say something that's not even close to being the truth. I mean, they want to call out lies and things that Trump says and things that I say. And she goes on and says something like that. That has nothing to do with objectivity. That has something to do with Jen Psaki completely lying about the situation.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess, it just always gets back to, are you going to be the bigger person and the better person? But if you are, then especially with these folks, then you're giving them some advantage. You're rewarding them in some ways. But, you also are not being the bigger person and the better person.
Well, you got to keep them honest.
I'll say one other thing about the left is, if you remember George Kennan, and I think it was 1949 when he wrote this famous X memo about containment. And we got to contain the Soviet Union. But the point he made about the left, communists, but the left in general, is they don't believe you deserve the truth. So they're the people like Jen Psaki who have such contempt for everyday Americans that they think they don't deserve the truth. They deserve to be told what will allow me to achieve power and whatever else I want.
That's exactly right.
And the problem is that a bunch of these knuckleheads who watch these brain dead people who watch her, believe it. I honestly think so. I think that there's a extreme group up top who lie and do these things to get power. I think they control the Democratic Party. And I think that there's just a bunch of people who think they're smart, and they're actually pretty stupid, because they listen to this stuff and they believe it when it flies in the face. And that's what makes it especially hard for the rest of us, because their lies are so bad.
Yeah, and look, and that's why I get angry, because look, Fox isn't perfect, and I've seen some spin on Fox that I might not appreciate, but they always want to go to the Fox viewer or Fox News when I would put their news coverage up against CNN or MSNBC and the accuracy of some of this stuff any day of the week. Peder Zane, always great to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Audio cut of the day is coming up.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
We do have a baseball game tonight, and eastbound 6440 is lined up. It's just moderate volume, but it's east of Lindbergh through Big Bend. Westbound, a slow go, Kings Highway out through Big Bend. Accident reported southbound 170 south of Olive. It's close to Delmar. That's created a jam. Slow-moving traffic southbound 270, especially Page, down through Ladue Road, and then some moderate volume that continues down toward 44. 141 is also jammed, headed for 44. And if you are on 70 westbound, it's fine. I mean, it's a little slow around the airport. We had that stall earlier near Cypress. That jam never eased. And eastbound just have some moderate volume into downtown. Now, the other jam is westbound 270. There's an incident past Riverview that's causing a delay through that area as well. This report brought to you by Barron Mirror Glass and Door. Barron Mirror Glass and Door is simply the finest when it comes to mirror glass and shower doors. You can't find better quality, prices, or service. They have the basics all the way up to the elite. Barron Mirror Glass and Door can't be beat. I'm Sue Thomas. That's Traffic. 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
Well, I earlier expressed my my love and devotion to football, the NFL in particular. I want to talk about Underdog Fantasy because this is really the time to have fun on Underdog. You can play in Missouri, of course, and football is back. If you go up on the app right now, you can see the game with the Chiefs and the Chargers. And all you'd have to do for Friday night's game is pick higher or lower on a stat line. So once you download the app, you come up with a username and a password. You use the promo code MARKR. That's going to score you some bonus money. I'll get back to that here in a second. And then you go on the Champions game and you just pick higher or lower on a stat line. So for Travis Kelce, will he have more than 50 receiving yards, 50.5 receiving yards? So will he get 51 or more or 50 or fewer? Passing touchdowns for Mahomes. How about, well, he's going to have more than a touchdown, so I'm going to go 2 touchdowns. So more than 1.5 touchdowns. Higher on that stat line. You can do the same thing for Justin Herbert or the Chargers. You don't have to do just one game. You can pick the game that's on tomorrow night between the who is it? The Cowboys and who the hell else is playing tomorrow night?
Oh, I don't remember.
Damn it. I can't believe I'm forgetting that. Anyway, my point is you can mix and match and do the other games. And it's a lot of fun. It's real easy. But when you download the app, sign up with the promo code MARKR. That will score you $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. It's the Eagles, by the way. That just came to me. Eagles and the Cowboys tomorrow night. Promo code is MARKR. Millions of fans have won billions making plays on Underdog. Will you be next? Must see 18 plus, present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
Scott Jennings here. I'm excited to be part of the St. Louis conservative conversation, cutting through the noise with unfiltered common sense.
Scott Jennings.
Weekdays at 8 p.m.
on 97.1 FM Talk.
Are you nearing retirement and don't know if you have enough money saved to retire? That is scary. Do you have a written retirement financial plan in place? Well, when it comes to retirement planning, the trusted team at Financial and Tax Architects are the best. They've helped people all over St. Louis retire with confidence. And that's what you want. You want to retire with confidence. Now, they offer a one-night, 2.5-hour adult education class called Retirement Planning 101. They hold these at colleges over the St. Louis area and in Illinois. No cost, no obligation, just learning. And at this class, you learn how to avoid costly mistakes, how to maximize your income, how to reduce taxes in retirement. So call them today, 314-888-5101, or visit fta-ria.com and take the first step toward a smarter retirement. 314-888-5101.
If you want thick, healthy, gorgeous hair, then you need Hair Volume from New Nordic. Available as a tablet or delicious gummy, Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
He's not here to play nice. He's here to make you think. Mark Reardon on 97.1 FM Talk.
All right, running a little short on time, so let's get right to it here.
Playback ready.
Now, the audio cut of the day.
Well, let me do a couple here because Jason Smith will be with us tomorrow. He's the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee. He helped shepherd the big, beautiful bill through Congress, get it to the Senate, get it passed. The president signed it, but they're not going to call it that anymore, Sue. They come up with a new name. This is Congressman Rich Hudson, who was told this morning by the White House that we're going to do something a little different.
The name One Big Beautiful Bill to help get it passed, and now to try to explain to the American people, he's suggesting we call it the Working Families Tax Cut.
So you guys will also tell members, so when they're holding town halls and things like that, to refer to it in that way.
Well, that's what the White House told us this morning.
I can understand why they're doing that from a marketing perspective, but we'll circle back on that. We'll ask Jason about it tomorrow. So you have people in Chicago, including the former mayor, Lori Lightfoot, who could be the only person more embarrassing than the current mayor, Brandon Johnson, talking about crime and what Trump wants to do in Chicago by bringing in the National Guard and to help people not be killed in her city.
This is not about violent crime. And I don't think we should pretend that this manufactured crisis and his attempt to provoke people in Chicago is legitimate exercise of power. It is not. We also know there are red cities in red states that have higher per capita rates of gun violence and other violent crime that we're not hearing coming out of the president's mouth as a places where he really wants to go.
Yeah, that's because there are no red cities. They're all blue cities. There may be red states like Missouri, but there are blue cities. And tell this guy who owns a bar in Chicago that crime is down.
Yeah, we've had a lot of gun violence. We've had guys with AK-47 shooting right outside the pub. We've had the pub robbed. My wife and myself been shot at. Both my vehicles have gun holes in them. The bar was robbed at gunpoint with free armed assailants come in, robbed the customers, robbed our the bar. We've had gangbangers crash into the building. We've had the bar robbed. My staff have been assaulted. I've been assaulted. We've been mugged 3 times. We have it's just never ending.
Yeah, sounds super, super safe. Have a great night. We'll talk tomorrow at 3.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.
Hey, if you are going to the Cardinals game tonight, there is some volume on eastbound 40, but it's not too bad. Mostly right now, it's 170 through Big Bend. Westbound is still lined up approaching Hampton out through McCausland. Crews have been dealing with an accident southbound 170 south of Olive and a stall westbound 70 at Cypress. So that's pretty slow if you're headed to the airport. Also jammed is westbound 270, an incident at Riverview causing a jam back across the bridge. And if you are headed into downtown on 70, there's some moderate volume. It's not too terrible. Things look fine on the bridges downtown. This report brought to you by Lakeside Renovation and Design. For over 25 years, they've been St. Louis's trusted choice for transforming homes inside and out. Windows, siding, kitchens, baths, outdoor spaces. They give you quality craftsmanship backed by lifetime warranties. Visit lakesiderd.com to start your dream project today. I'm Sue Thomas. That's Traffic 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis Conservative.
You know, if you're in that period in your life where you think you might have a marriage that's ending, you need to get on the horn with Susan L. Ward. And, she'll even tell you that a lot of people wait until the last minute before selecting or consulting with a lawyer. That is not a good situation. Procrastination in a family law situation in particular,